I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to ask the board to remain standing for a moment of silence of our work, and also to offer our personal prayers for the safe return of Leanna Walker. Thank you. And Julie, would you do a roll call, please?
Ron Bouquet. Here. Ryan Carso.
Here.
Jessica Decker.
Here.
Jack Fisher.
Here.
Corey Homer.
Here.
Pam Lutfi.
Here.
Jack O'Leary.
Here.
Chuck Pike.
Here.
And John Lefsky.
Here.
Thank you, Julie. May I have a volunteer to read the mission statement?
I got it.
Yeah, Corey.
Belleville Valley School District, in partnership with our community, stands committed to maximizing student potential, fostering lifelong learning, and promoting responsible citizenship.
Thank you, Corey. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
John Rubleski and Jack O'Leary. Is there any discussion regarding the agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. I would like to remind the audience that your comments are welcome. Just give us your name to Julie. Raise your hand and identify yourself. And we now have presentation.
Yes. We have two student presentations tonight. First, we have recognition of our FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America. Can the FBLA students come in? Coach, you're not in the sling.
This week I got it off.
That's great.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having us today. My name is Audrey Joswright. I'm one of the co-advisors for DBFBLA. Unfortunately, Mrs. Mara Engel cannot be here today. She's with other students on a trip, so she'll be back with us shortly. Today, we wanted to let you know how we did state conference. We took 46 students to the State Leadership Conference in Hershey, Pennsylvania in April. Of them, 19 have qualified for the National Leadership Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, which is very exciting. That is our largest in years. As a chapter, we won a few awards. Number one, we placed third in our Big 33 Community Service Award. We had 3,524 and a half hours submitted, which is pretty amazing. We placed 7th as a chapter in the William Selden Outstanding Chapter, and we placed 9th as a chapter in the BA Award submissions. I'm going to turn it over to these young ladies and gentlemen. Their name, their grade, what event they did, give you an idea of what they went through, and a little bit of background information from our seniors.
My name is Alyssa Harvey. I'm the Community Service Director for our chapter. I'm in 11th grade. My event was personal finance, and then I also did another event with the other officers. It was the local chapter annual business report. We placed first in that event, and in my personal finance event, I placed 5th.
My name is Paulina Kenshaw. I'm in 11th grade. My team did management decision making.
I'm Anthony Ghosh. In 11th grade, I completed the future level as well as I was inducted into the National Business Honor Society, along with 3 other members from our school. Gabriella and I, we did business ethics. So we were presented with a topic, which was, excuse me, research in ethical topic related to animal testing. So we either had to go pro or con on the issue and basically research and then create a 7-minute presentation, go in front of a panel of judges, and afterwards they asked us 3 minutes of question and answer.
I'm Gabriella. In addition to what Anthony said, me and Anthony were both campaign managers for our now our state VP at large, Shane Fagan. We wrote his speech, we helped with his campaign, and that was a true honor to be able to compete as well as be involved in sort of the political side of our state.
My name is Cindy Lee. I'm a sophomore. I'm also the secretary for our local chapter. I did Introduction to Financial Math for my event this year. the future level of the Business Achievement Awards, and like Alyssa, I participated in creating our local chapter annual business report, for which we received first place.
My name is Joseph Gurkhan. I am a senior. As being my second year in FBLA, I am the technical director for our local chapter in FBLA. My event is database design application. So what I had to do with that was I basically just had to design databases and create calculations and reports based on that. I got 4th place out of the state and eligible to go nationals. As well, BAAs, I've achieved the future, business, leader, and future levels. I am also inducted into the National Honor Society, Business Honor Society, sorry. And I was awarded the Keystone Leadership Award. I believe that's it.
Yes.
My name is David DeFries, and I'm a sophomore, and I got 3rd place for 3D animation. And I was responsible for helping with the graphics for Shane's campaign. That's actually really it.
Hi, my name's Hannah Matthews. I'm a senior this year. My event was word processing. So basically we had to create not spreadsheets, we had to create documents and business letters and things like that according to a list of instructions that the judges gave us. And then also I took a test on terminology, and I placed first in my event at states, which qualified me for nationals. Just as Joe and Anthony, I was also granted membership into the National Business Honor Society. And yeah.
My name is Justin Pranga. I'm a senior at Delaware Valley High School. My event was client service. We were given a case study about a company that we work for and a problem that a customer has. We go into a room and the judges mock call us, and we have to answer their questions on the spot and fix the customer's problem. I placed 2nd in the state. My plans post high school are I'm going to Wilkes University for majoring in chemistry. I'm also received the Air Force ROTC scholarship for the program.
My name is Brandon Haraldson, and I am the vice president of our local FBLA chapter, as well as the regional president for FBLA. My event was emerging business issues, which I had to argue all viewpoints of the legalities and the ethics regarding jailbreaking and unlocking devices. Nationals for the local annual chapter business report. I'm planning on going to Virginia Tech and majoring in mechanical engineering in Arabic. I received an Army ROTC scholarship.
My name is Randy Evers. I'm in 11th grade. My event was economics, and I got 7th place in the state. I took a multiple choice test, and it was on various things on economics, both micro and macro. So 7th place in the state, not to mention 1st place in the region to get to states.
Hi, my name is Vanessa. I am Vanessa Pamela. I'm a junior. Let's see, where are we going from here? I am our local chapter's reporter, so that's always fun. My event was impromptu speaking, not that you guys could tell from how I'm speaking. Look, I had 10 minutes to prepare there, okay? Yeah, I had 10 minutes to prepare and give a 4-minute speech with note cards, and it was fun. I got too excited in the house, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And I really think that about accomplishes, so thank you.
Overall, just to add, Shane Fagan is now Vice President at Large at the state chapter. As they said, some of the members here campaigned for him, so we're really excited to have another state officer as we go forward. So he'll be representing PAFBLA at the national conference as well, amongst other students who couldn't make it today, who are at lacrosse and some other functions as well, which is exciting that we have multiple event students. So they worked really hard. Some of them were individual testing, some were presentations, some were projects, others were impromptu as we go. Do you guys have any questions for them?
When do you go to, is that Atlanta?
June, Atlanta, Georgia.
Is that after graduation?
It is after graduation. Oh, wow. It's the end of the month.
That's dedication.
School isn't over for us.
Your impromptu speaking reminds me, that's pretty good to have 10 minutes to prepare a 4-minute speech. And I read where Woodrow Wilson had famously noted that he said, give me 2 hours to speak and I need 10 minutes to prepare. Give me 10 minutes to speak and I need 2 hours to prepare. Be that concise, that's pretty cool.
It's not as bad as you think it'd be, especially after you kind of get used to it. You kind of get into rhythm, you kind of know what to talk about. Yeah, of course, he has big issues to talk about, so he probably needs a lot of time. I get 4 minutes.
In conclusion, we did bring some information from the state conference. If you'd like further information, take a look at and read, keep them and have them around. Just to get an idea of what goes on at our state.
I noticed we have a lot of juniors here, so looking forward to even bigger things next year. It's gonna be awesome, a lot of experience. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to congratulate you all as well on your achievement. It's really great. You sit there on that side. I was once young. Nobody believes that, but I was once young. And when I was young and was your age, I would hear people my age say, "Oh, the future of America! Oh my God, the future of America!" And now, at 53, I do sit and I do say those same things that I heard when I was as young as you. And I do say, I wonder what direction this country is going to be, what it's going to be like for you people, in the next generation that grows up. But when I see young students like yourself, in your ability, I know you could go right out into the world and make an impact, and I'm sure all of you will. So I don't sit back like the older people now, because I see folks like you. So congratulations, it's great work.
Thank you. And it also seems like you're having fun.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
That's really important to have fun along with all the hard work. And that's so fun. Thank you. Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks, guys.
Mr. Runner. Yeah, we have one more, and that is our Scholastic Bowl team with Mr. DeVizia. So come on in. Yep.
Hello, members of the board, administrators, and so on. These are 3/4 of the members of a history-making Scholastic Bowl team here at Delaware Valley. Jacob Alstrand, Simon Shahee, Colin Kiwan Hemler, and Drake Eshelman, who would have been here for this last one as well, but he's off dancing right now. He has lots of reasons to dance right now tonight. But anyway, they're going to present to you a bit of what's happening with us with Scholastic Bowl, and then I'll...
Hi, my name is Jake Malstrand. I'm a senior here at Delaware Valley High School. And Drake Eshelman is one of my best friends, and he tried talking me into joining Scholastic Bowl last year. And he just kept bugging me about it. And I mean, I didn't really know what it was. And so I was kind of thinking to myself, I'm already enough of a nerd as is. And this totally sounds like something for nerds. And I don't want to be any more of a nerd. And eventually he talked me into coming to a couple practices, and I kind of fell headfirst into it, and I haven't looked back since. So what we do is we have a team of 4 people. We are our A team, and we go to tournaments across the state, across different states to compete. And it's formatted where we have 20 questions where they read this question that's a paragraph long. It gets easier as you go along. If you think you know it, you buzz in. And if you do, and you get it correct, then your team gets a set of 3 questions that you're allowed to talk about. And I just thought that was such an interesting format, and I fell in love with it. And I got to learn so much through Scholastic Bowl in just the past 2 years that I've been doing it. And I've had the privilege of last year, we attended HSNCT Nationals in Chicago. And this year, in a couple of weeks, we will be heading back to Chicago for PACE National Tournament. And between the wonderful classes that we've had at the school and under Mr. DeVizia's leadership and just independent studying, we've been able to learn so much and become a successful team that Delaware Valley has not seen before. Recently, we won our local league for, I think, 4 of the past 5 years. And we also won a local tournament up outside Ithaca, New York. Community college. I was actually the tournament MVP for that one. But and we've placed well and won several other tournaments throughout the state, and we're very excited and grateful for the opportunity to be able to go to nationals again this year. We would not be able to do it without your overwhelming support, and we are extremely grateful for that.
So thank you. My name is Simon Shahi. I'm also a senior here at Delaware Valley. And similar to Jake, I was also convinced by my friend Drake to convince basketball. But it was earlier on freshman year. And when I joined freshman year, I went to a couple practices. I'm like, why did Drake bring me here? I hate this. And then I realized this is not for me. So I just stopped doing it after like the first semester. And then I had Mr. DeVizia again my sophomore year for AP Statistics. And Mr. DeVizia said, we haven't practiced again. I said, I guess I might as well go again and try and see if anything changes. And turns out nothing changed for me, at least. But then I was like, I had a chance to go to a tournament, and I did somewhat all right at the tournament, and I realized, okay, it is somewhat for me. And then I kept on with it, and eventually, like, I was invited to go to nationals that year to Washington, D.C. And after that, I really became involved with it. Like, it was just a cool experience for me to go to Washington, D.C. I've never been really outside of the tri-state area or New York City, and that was cool. And Jake said, we've really done well this year. We've hosted our own tournament for the first time with the support of the school, and that was a really nice thing to do. Other things that we did, we won our local league, and we won a couple of other competitions. Even the ones that we didn't win at, we came in second, third, or fourth, and we were happy with how we did, and we were able to qualify for nationals. And over the classes, over studying on our own at home, or whatever we do, we've all been able to develop as a good team and individual as well. Like Jake said, he was tournament MVP at one tournament, and another tournament that we were able to go near at Rutgers. We played as our own individual teams to see how that went, and that went pretty fun as well. Jake's team got 8th, I believe. Colin's team also got 10th, and my team as myself got 3rd. That was pretty fun. And so grateful for that experience, and thankful for the school for allowing us to go to Chicago for the second consecutive time.
I'm Colin, and I'm a freshman here at DV. I started Quiz Bowl. I was convinced by my friend, not Drake, to go to a meeting. And I think I sat in the back, didn't say anything, didn't get any toss-ups. But then the next week, I got the buzzers. And I think my first toss-up was on the Kurdish people in the Middle East. And so they were impressed, Jake and Simon. And they said, we'd like you to stick around more. And I was invited to go to the tournament in Ithaca, my first tournament, and I really liked it. It was like such a great experience. Cool, that was fun. And going out to eat with Mr. DeVizia, he picks like great places. Always the best.
I gotta do something right.
And I started to grow more comfortable with Quiz Bowl, our Scholastic Bowl, and we went to more tournaments and started to really enjoy the competitiveness and just the great experiences like visiting new schools and somewhat making new friends with other teams. Like we have a somewhat rivalry with Ithaca in New York. We always love to see them. And I think we beat them, right, last time? Yeah, I think we're tied. So we'll see how that is next year. And so, yeah, I'm the only returning A-team member next year. But we're excited for the next year. We are hosting Tri-State Tussle, our local tournament, again this fall. And we hope to have a great tournament again. Maybe make something that lasts for, I don't know how long, however long, decades. And I just, again, would like to thank you all for your support with Scholastic Bowl. It means a lot, and I can't think where we would be without your support.
What grade did you say you were in?
Freshman.
This is part of our 12-year plan for success in Scholastic. We'll have them lie about their age. So but anyway, I just want to brag a little bit that the way they didn't brag so much. Jacob here has really a player for Scholastic Bowl, and when Jacob steps up and answers questions, you can't touch him on geography. He's well-traveled. He knows his stuff very well. He's very quick. And he's been a huge part of our team. Simon, it sounds like he was a little bit of a nudge and a little bit of a bragging moment there or something, but he has actually much more to brag about. Simon, when he got started with Scholastic Bowl, didn't stand out so much at the beginning, as you could probably guess from that. But boy, Simon saw a hole in the team. We didn't have a real strong literature player, and he decided that he was going to make his mark on Delaware Valley Scholastic Bowl, and basically a great literature player. And now Simon is regarded commonly by everyone around the state of Pennsylvania as the #1 literature player in the state. Nobody touches Simon on those things, and he's actually, become more of a generalist now. Simon was picked first team All-Star for Pennsylvania, and Drake, his teammate, was an honorable mention. Colin has been a monster ever since we've had him. He knows stuff that people just shake their head, where does he get that from? We still do that. And to have him around for another 12 years, the perennial freshman, is going to be really awesome. He's going to stay here longer than me until he has hair like as gray as this. But anyway, they are a fantastic team. And if you get to see them play, the cool part about Delaware Valley is when you have a foursome like this, they compete with each other. I think you kind of picked up on that. But when they play really well together. They know each other really well. They've had a lot of practice playing with each other. And if one guy has a down day, there's always somebody who's going to step up and be the hero. These guys are, one match, one guy is the hero, another match, another guy's the hero. And to go into Ithaca, we're the only team ever to go into Ithaca and beat Ithaca on their home turf, and we've done it multiple times. It's cool that we've gotten to the point that this is the school that we actually kind of align ourselves with now or something. So, we hope to stay great. And this coming year, we've got a couple new challenges ahead. We're going to be in WVIA for the first time. Delaware Valley will be competing on there after we lose 3/4 of this monster team that we've been having for the last few years. But we're looking at rebuilding, and we've got some good people that we're training and bringing up. So we hope to be awesome again next year on TV for everybody to see. And then, like they said, hosting another tournament. It's so cool that schools from Ohio, New Jersey, New York are traveling long distances, coming overnight to Delaware Valley for a tournament because they want to put their team up against Delaware Valley as a measuring stick. So this doesn't happen without your regular support of being able to do this. You support us going to nationals every year. You support us being able to host a tournament like this. And now Delaware Valley is known to everybody. So it's awesome. Thank you so much for your support of that.
Thank you.
Is Quiz Bowl different than Scholastic Bowl?
I'm sorry.
There's different formats of it, and actually maybe that's one of the cool things about this team is that we've only been playing this format of Scholastic Bowl or Quiz Bowl for 2.5 years. It goes by different names, different places, but they alluded to this kind of pyramidal format we talk about, where questions are not so much buzzer races and quick answer. They're more, they start very broad, can get the question maybe from the first line, and then each successive line to the question narrows it down, and by the time you get to the end, it's kind of an easier question. What that means is it reduces the likelihood that a weaker team can beat a stronger team in a long match. And so, we've had to kind of retrain ourselves, I suppose, in making the switch, and these guys are the product of good at pyramidal Quiz Bowl. The other thing that's great about this format is that it really teaches the kids to dig and to learn. They actually want to learn more. It's not just like trying to be fast at answering questions, but they learn from the questions they don't answer. So this version of Scholastic Bowl has been a terrific teaching thing for these guys.
I know Colin's going to be here same time, same place for the next dozen years or so. But Jake and Simon, what do you guys got planned for after graduation?
I'm going to the University of Wyoming out in Laramie, Wyoming. After this, I'm going to be majoring in forensic psychology out there.
I'm going to Penn State University Park, and I'm planning on majoring in computer science.
That's great.
Kevin, I'd like to thank you for making us look good. I think we should also recognize the involvement of our local Rotary.
Yes.
And the cooperation with the school district. Rotary just provides a little help reading questions and keeping score, some minor financial assistance. But Speaking as a Rotarian, I want to invite you guys to come to a meeting. We want to field our own team and compete with you guys at lunch, and we're prepared to leave.
This Tuesday, we're ready. Thank you for mentioning about the Rotary, because really, our team, the Rotary Run League, or the league that Bob Ween ran, it was really they that sort of kept the interscholastic competition in our area alive, and eventually it evolved and developed into this, and now Rotary has taken on the challenge of switching over to this new format, and Jamie Mallett has done a wonderful job in doing that, and the Rotarians with their donated time to help come out and judge and read. It was a fantastic year this year. We're grateful to the Rotarians too.
Thanks again.
Jake and Colin, I've seen you guys here before. That's a really good thing that we see you participating and taking advantage of what Delaware Valley has to offer. It's great. I guess, do they call you coach?
No, I just call him Mr. D.
Okay, Mr.
Geek, head geek.
While I'm watching this go on, I'm watching you. And what I see in you is tremendous pride in these kids. It's like those three boys are like your sons. That's the pride. So I really have to thank you for, you don't put that on a piece of paper. That's what we say, So when you look up, it's very important for these young men to have somebody like yourself in their life. And a lot of young men today don't have positive role models in their lives. So thank you, most importantly, for being that positive role model. And I see that throughout our school system, so I'm very proud of our school system. What you guys say about being geeks? That's only for right now. You may feel that. When you get out into the world, you have a nice, big, fat wallet. You see a fancy car that you want, or a boat you want, or you want something for your families, you'd be glad, But the thing about geeks, don't ever let anybody put a label on you. That's the one thing. And the one thing you guys do, when I see you coming to multiple events and being a part of good, positive things, this man here sitting in front, he's a police chief. The great thing about what you guys are doing is when you see this man walking down the road, you can walk up to him and not have to walk away from him. And there's a lot to be said for that. So thank you for being positive role models also for as your coach, Mr. D, is your positive role model, you too in turn for your other students, and that becomes infectious and it becomes good. So
thank you.
I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Very proud of you. And thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Best.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Laramie, Wyoming, I hope you like snow and the rodeo.
I love it. I used to live about an hour and a half away from it, so.
You know what it's like.
He's coming back for weekends.
I gotta say, about your prediction of fat wallets, I plan to do journalism, so I don't know if that's in my future.
He's got perspective.
Take a minor in finance.
Thank you.
A lot of journalists publish their own books, You might have the next Harry Potter coming out.
Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more presentation. We have Mr. Bob Curtis and his engineering crew are here as well. We have a whole host of people we're trying to get in before the end of the year. Hey, Mr. Curtis, how you doing?
All right, good. I see a little obstacle there.
Oh, yeah.
The mail carrier of the future.
There you go. Is that better?
First of all, thank you for allowing us to come and say thank you for all the support you've given us. My name is Bob Curtis. I teach the first two levels of engineering and AP Physics 1 at the high school, and I'm also the advisor for the engineering club. So with me are some club members who've all qualified for nationals. So first, I know this guy. He's my son, Dan. He's a junior. Emily Lepore and Henny Esau, also juniors, and Chloe King, who's a senior. So first of all, ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. So we just had a little thank you letter that hopefully makes its way to you. don't know if he's going to be able to reach high enough, but
I'll go under the table. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll go under the table.
Okay. All right. So this was one of our projects in the engineering club, was the robotics competition. So the engineering club is a member of the Technology Student Association, and we compete at the regional, the state, at the national level, and we wouldn't have been able to do this without all your support, and especially Mr. Blum. I want to thank, because I feel bad whenever I see Mr. Blum. It's always like I have my hat in my hand. Can you help me, Mr. Blum? So he's been great. So just as a little background, this is only the third year for the engineering club. So the first year we went to regionals and we got shut out. We didn't get anything at all. The second year we went to regionals. We had 4 team qualifiers and we had 8 individual qualifiers. We went to states and we had 1 national qualifier that year. This year, in our third year, we went to regionals. We had 11 team qualifiers, 15 individual qualifiers. We went to states and we had 13 national qualifiers. So every year the club is getting better, the kids are getting more experience, and it's a great experience for all of them because they get to, compete and work with kids from all around the state, and now, which is very cool. So, if I'm going to have my students just talk a little bit about their projects, I should probably mention that my son was on the robotics team, and Emily and Hannah were on the electronic research team, and Chloe did accomplished the best finish ever for a student from DV. So she finished in 2nd place in 2 events state, which is very cool. So, okay, so take it away. So tell me a little bit about the robotics.
So the robotics competition at the PA State Robotics or PA State competition is where you have a robot like this made out of X parts. You have about a 4x4 area where you have to pick up balls and rings, which were kind of replacements for hazardous waste, and then you had to put them in a bucket. And they changed it up this year. We went there, and it used to be they kind of just had a big bucket of balls. You drop them in, and it's kind of all over the place, and just how much you could get. This year they had like 6 balls just in corners of the square, and then they had rings on hoops they had to put on. So, and what we found out was that simple is the best way to go. While people were making 3-story robots with conveyor belts and elevators, they ended up not getting anything because just the simple thing of just picking up and putting a ring on a stand, most of the robots couldn't do. So at the state competition, we got 4th place, and out of probably 12 teams there. So that was it went very well. I was very pleased with the results.
Very good. Okay.
Hannah and I were electronic research and experimentation, and we had to research and develop pretty much a device that could do anything we really wanted to do. So we chose something from our Engineering 3 class. It was a voting machine kind of project that we made into our own. And do you want to explain? I don't want to steal.
So basically in this voting machine, we decided to compare different kinds of integrated circuits and see which would be more efficient for a company to buy when they're trying to save money, but still create efficient and well-working products. And so we researched this and we determined this, and we used our electronic device to show which one worked better, and we proved that it happened to be that our NOR gates were the most efficient.
Okay, Chloe?
So the events that I was in this year included flight endurance and technical sketching, which involved, for flight endurance, I had to create like a really advanced paper airplane, which was made out of plastic and wood instead. And the awesome thing about it was that you learn about aerodynamics and you write a paper on it, and you're able to apply that to the plane by making like the best adjustments. And sometimes, you would have like a sudden break when you're just about to have to fly it, and you would have to, think on the spot and
you know, during the process of creating the plane, I was able to see that there's like this whole world of very passionate airplane makers that, you know, just fly these little airplanes, and, you know, they have the most crazy technology to do it. You know, like there's this plastic that they use for their wings that if you just touch it will create a hole. And they have like massive buildings that are dedicated to just flying these planes. So, you know, when I first started, I was like very intimidated, you know, getting into it and knowing I had the packet that had all that I needed to know. I became excited, and it was kind of like my redemption from the year before, because the year before I became, you know, very involved in the project I was doing. I did engineering design, where you create this device that helps people with disabilities. So I created this chair that pushing down the handles will push up your seat and has like this mechanical advantage. So, you know, half the effort to make twice the result. So, you know, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm great. This is gonna be great. And when I got there, I felt like ridiculous because I had this little chair with this, you know, tennis racket for a seat. And, you know, I was a little embarrassed and felt, you know, like I didn't fit in there. But just from having, you know, the experience and also recognizing that, you know, engineering is something that you can develop, you know, I became very comfortable because, you know, you start off not knowing anything, it feels like, you know, so you have control of that. And for technical sketching, just a shout out to Mr. Moran, who taught me everything I needed to know. And Mr. Curtis, it was just like, you know, exactly what I needed. And, you know, I was expecting not to place at all. And I ended up getting second in the state. So, you know, that was exciting. So it was both just, you know, overcoming failure and also feeling like maybe you're on top of the world after all. So,
Yeah, so one thing she didn't mention, and one thing I try to tell my students, that when you're an engineer, you have to keep trying. Like, you can never give up. You know, there's no way to ever get anything right the first time. So when Chloe flew her plane to fly it, the first time she flew it, it did nothing. I mean, it literally, like, she had it working perfectly. She does it the first time, it goes like a couple inches off the floor and then stops. Okay, we're like, oh no, you know. But she didn't get flustered, right? She didn't give up. She tried again, and the second time it was amazing. It was probably, it was got to be the best flight that was there. Basically, the competition is where it flies in a circle. Like they basically put it on the ground and it has to lift itself and it flies in a circle, and they base it on how long it stays in the air. And it was really beautiful, especially to see the smile on her face when the thing took off and it was just flying around nicely, you know. So if she didn't have that terrible first flight, because they averaged the two, so I no doubt she would have won, you know, if it didn't fail the first time. So it was a great example, and it was really cool to see that, you know, how she did not give up. You can't, you know, that you have to have that inside of you to really succeed in this. So, cool.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Really. And Chloe, I have a chair here that I think would benefit you. Try it on this chair sometime.
Chloe, the Wright brothers, they get credited with the first flight of Kitty Hawk. Now, there's been some controversy about who was the actual first, but the Wright brothers themselves, there's an interesting thing about that. It goes what your teacher was saying about success and failure. The Wright brothers knew nothing about aviation. They were bicycle mechanics. And at the time, they took everything that they knew about aeronautics at the time that was popular, the people that were trying to fly, and they said, none of this stuff has worked, and they threw it all out, and they came up with that plane and flew. Now, whether they were the first or whether they were not the first, it doesn't really matter. They took a plane and they flew it, and they knew nothing about it. And what I find brilliant about engineers is that you're artists, you create something. And you see, a lot of creation comes out of failure. You look at Edison, you look at Tesla. Well, that's where the greatest creations that we have today came out of failure. So I agree with don't ever fail. And just, we have a running joke with Pam. Pam can walk into a room of computers and they can all die. You can say about her own technology. So your robot is great. Is it delivered to Pam? And I was expecting it to catch fire on the way
So what are you doing after graduation?
I plan to study mechanical engineering and industrial design, but ultimately I want to be an industrial designer because, you know, that way I have them.
She's going to BYU. She doesn't want to tell you, but.
What's that?
She's going to BYU, which is a great school.
Is anyone else graduating?
No, I had more students, but they had a lot of games and work, a lot of different things, so they couldn't be here.
That's awesome.
One more question. What's the name of the robot? You have to name the robot.
They
didn't
name theirs. We named ours.
We don't really have a name. They gave it a number, which was 2171901.
What is that? Because that's what I'm going to start regretting.
901.
901. That's what I'm going to call you,
I just have to say that I'm so glad to see all of you. When I think back when we started the engineering program, in that program, we had no young ladies. So to see the three of you here and to hear what you're doing, you're all great. But I just have to say that I'm so proud to see you here and Mr. Curtis, who has taken this program and run with it. I mean, I know it's your heart and soul that really sparks these kids. So thank you so much. You do a great job. Very proud. Very proud.
Thank you. Thank you for all your support.
And Hannah, anytime you want to come back to Taekwondo, the door's open.
So did I, man.
Thank you.
Love those presentations. Any more?
I believe it or not, that's it. We're too over our stated limit, requirements. But we're just trying to get everybody in we can before they disappear in summer.
All right, so moving on, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting held on April 21st, 2016?
So moved.
Brian?
Second.
And Chuck. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. We're going to move on to our reports. Are there any comments on the administrative, attendance, or financial reports? All right, and now we're going to move to Sophie Lutfi. We're not going to make you wait as long as we did the last time.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up my sister from college. So the annual Special Olympics took place yesterday. I think it was a huge success this year. It was, they did a really good job organizing it. I was able to participate and the athletes had a really fun time. I was assigned to just one specific athlete, but all the kids and volunteers seemed to have a really fun day and it was beautiful outside. So that was really good for all of us. And everyone had a smile on their face. So it was really fun for me at least. I know a lot of the seniors are really excited and the student council officers, I'm one of them, but I didn't actually because I couldn't leave school. Prom committee spent most of today setting up for the prom, so I think that's going to be a really fun time for us. Except for the weather's been really nice this week, and I think we're going to get wet tomorrow. But that's okay. These past 2 weeks, the APs have been going on, and the AP tests are being wrapped up tomorrow, which is really exciting, I think, for the teachers and students. So it's going to be a little bit of a relief. Also, the spring sports have been going on. They're coming to a close, kind of. I know the sports teams are really excited. Districts are kind of around the corner for some of the teams, and I know lacrosse got their 4th consecutive league title, so they're having a really successful season. Along with baseball, I think they have a 13-1 record, and volleyball and tennis. So they're always on the announcements. So I think the sports teams are excited. It's really encouraging for all of us to see. Special Olympics Color Me Rad this Sunday in Scranton, and I know a lot of the students are going to either run it or volunteer, so that's really cool. I might be going up actually to Scranton this Sunday, so that should be fun. The Delaware newspaper is really busy at work. They're interviewing 73 seniors for the paper and specific teachers. So I know they're really busy. They're doing their last edition of the year, so that's a big addition. And basically, finals are starting soon. A lot of the students are studying who don't have APs. Around the corner, so we're really all excited for break, I think. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Sophie. Any questions? Thank you.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Good.
It's crazy. It's not And I'm not wearing it like this either. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good time.
Thank you.
And now, Superintendent Bell.
Hope we got the first three. One reminder for you guys is just when we have the work session on June 9th, we invite you to come at 6 instead of the 6:30 start, because that's when the retirees come for the cake and everything before the. So anybody can get, if you can get here anytime before 6:30, that'd be appreciated, but as early as 6 would be great. We'll have the retirees here that night, and we'll also have the top 25 students here that night, so we can honor people from both ends of the educational spectrum. It'll be fun. And then there's no weekend review tomorrow because of the prom. I'm going to be a little busy with the prom tomorrow, so there'll be no weekend review. So you have one less thing to read this weekend.
John, where is the prom? Is it on?
Best Western.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they all coordinated.
I can only stay for a short time because I have a senior this year, so I have to leave very early.
That just wouldn't be right.
It's a short appearance and I'm kicked out. So.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. Moving on to bills for payment, may I have a motion to accept payment, which includes the general fund, cafeteria fund, capital reserve fund, and the 2016 construction fund.
Motion?
John,
Second.
Jack, O'Leary, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. In personnel items, may I have a motion to approve resignations, appointments, requests for child rearing leave, extension of bereavement, and change of status?
So moved.
Brian,
Second.
Corey, any discussion? All those, Jessica?
I just had a question about some of the, like Caitlin Mabel, her salary was significantly higher than the other ones. I'm just curious, is she the substitute for the district, or is she outside experience?
No, outside experience. Some of these you'll see that are not the step ones because they're not the kids right out of college. They're ones with significant amount of experience, both at the last meeting and this one. This year, for whatever reason, we've been able to attract a really nice mix of experienced people from multiple states: Jersey, Maryland, Arizona, Alaska. Alaska. One of the jobs we had two finalists. It was between a guy from Tucson, Arizona, and a woman from the Bering Strait of Alaska, and former PA kids who want to come back home. And so Jim Purcell and I were Skype, and we were in Arizona and Alaska on the same day. Skype interview. It's pretty wild. So it says a lot about our reputation. Today, one of the ones that's on here, the one that's in red, drove all the way in from Altoona this morning. And a young lady who grew up in Wilkes-Barre and has been teaching out by Altoona is going to be coming to the high school to be a music teacher. So it's amazing how far people have traveled, or they've Skyped in this year. So we really given Billy Ajita because everybody wasn't 22 and no experience coming in. So we really pushed them this year with the hires.
So are they coming with master's degrees or?
Some are masters and lots of credits and anywhere from 4 to 10 years experience in the people we've hired this year. We've been blessed in so many ways with the candidates. It's been a phenomenal spring.
Any additional discussion? All those I'm sorry, Rosemary.
I have a question about the two people that are being hired for child rearing leaves. The salaries that are listed there, is that from the beginning or is that starting when? It's M and M, I think.
It's prorated for the period of time that the employee is not using days. So
does that fall under the 90-day thing that, so as long as the employee is using sick days, if they're getting sub-pay, and then once the employee stops using, then they get put on that step?
Correct.
Okay. Do they get any benefits with that, or just?
Not until 90 days.
Like 90 days and they get benefits?
90 days on step, then they get benefits.
Okay.
Thank you, Rosemary. Any other discussion? Okay, So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I now have a motion to approve additional volunteers? I'm sorry, was that Jeff Fisher?
Second.
Corey? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the 2016 graduating class pending completion of graduation requirements?
So moved.
Jeff O'Leary
Second.
and John Wadowski. Any discussion?
What was the total number? I didn't count.
I didn't count them mine.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Last time I looked, it was around 369 or something like that. Yeah. This is it's a smaller group, it's under 400 this year. This group's smaller than we had last next year, for whatever reason. It's kindergarten, this group.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I now have a motion to approve the recommendation of bid awards? How, front of you?
Motion.
John Wadowski? Jeff Fisher. Any discussion?
Any surprises here, Bill?
Pretty traditional.
Okay.
The instruments, equipment, and supplies, who do we get that from, Bill? Same vendor?
There's items that go out to bid, and then we have a list of all the musical vendors, and then it comes back with competitive bids, and the department chairs lead the charge with the teachers to select the best item that meets the spec at the lowest price.
Because I just, with my own daughters, I like the outfits that they picked so far. They've been really good.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the textbook list for 2016-17?
Motion.
John?
Second.
And Brian, any discussion?
Just like to say that I've had a chance to look at the new textbooks in the room next door. Looks like they're exceptional quality. The astronomy course, is that an elective or an AP course?
It's an elective course.
Like it's a really high-level textbook. I would guess that they use that same textbook in college programs. It's pretty advanced, and the 9th grade AP geography book looks really interesting too. I think that's going to be an outstanding course.
And thank you for the work you put into that.
Oh, you're welcome. Teachers do the lion's share.
So, that was discussion. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the Scranton-Lackawanna Human Development Agency agreement to provide Head Start programs in pre-kindergarten?
Motion.
John Wadowski
Second.
and Brian. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve for approval of change orders PC 008B, PC 020, PC 024, PC 026, PC 029, PC 030, and PC 023 for the Delaware Valley New Elementary School project?
Motion.
John Wadowski and Chuck. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that these are really just normal costs that happen on any construction project. I'm glad that there's so little. You usually expect a project of that size, you expect what they call a punch list at the end to be tremendous with a lot of stuff added on there. But I would like to say how this shows into reality. Like in the administrative reports this month, Brian Blow mentioned that he brought his architectural students from the high school over to the DV elementary school. And I'm always in favor of that because what an architect draws and what an engineer specs out is not always for the guy that's installing that stuff. And that's why we see these changes. And the more architectural students and engineers that we have actually going on job sites, you make them much better architects, much better engineers, and then it transfers into business school. So I was very glad to read that today, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. We now going to have our presentation? Okay.
We get blinded there. Billy wanted to do this all by himself again this month. I think I'll let me earn my keep a little bit, right?
Now I gotta tell the truth, that night you're here.
That's right. So, this is the traditional presentation that we do every May. You'll see a lot of similar slides, just different numbers and things like that. Because this presentation is usually one that we put up on the website tomorrow, so that it's available for the 30-day public notice. If we need to make any changes to it tonight, we'll make those modifications and then make those revisions to the actual slides and get it up for the 30 days. Remember, after you vote tonight, it has to be out in the public, available to the public for 30 days. In the old days, we used to have paper copies laying around for people to come in and look at them. Now we can just put them on the web so people can look at them wherever they like to do it. So this is
it's in section, just to go over your book just here a second. The first section is is just a summary of the main things in the budget. Your enrollment section, your revenues, expenditures by function, and another way to look at them is by object, and then all the grants that, as of this point, that we have proposed. And then section 7, if you want to follow it on paper and make notes, is the same as what you're going to see up here on the board. So,
we will go back and forth, so you don't have to listen to one person the whole time. There's the list of our people who get to vote tonight. Get to vote. Here's a look at enrollment over the years. We've been around 4,600 and change the last 3 years. We don't see the big dips that we saw. We've been kind of languishing in this 4,600 number, which is about the number we were at around the year 2000. So we had a huge spike in growth in here, perpetual for 20 years. And then we had a major drop off, and then we've stabilized now. This is just what the projected enrollment is next year, divided by the 3 attendance zones, the Delaware Valley attendance area, the Dingman, Delaware attendance area, and Shahola. Numbers, students that are placed at other educational agencies, and that's where we come up with that 4614 that we showed you on the bar graph. From an academic standpoint, 2 things to really brag about, of course, are the Washington Post and the U.S. News. These are the 2 national recognitions for schools, and these both recognize high schools, but obviously we all take pride in at K-12 because they don't just magically become smart when they become freshmen. It'd be the opposite when you become a high school freshman, but we're really proud. Washington Post is the most rigorous of all the standards that they have out there in terms of criteria, and we're 1,034 in the U.S., number 12 in Pennsylvania. In U.S. News, we're a little lower, but it's interesting to look at the formula because they each use a different formula. Newsweek used to be another one. We used that one back there with Newsweek, and Newsweek doesn't do it anymore because I'm not sure if Newsweek is around anymore. I think they got bought up by the Daily Beast, which is a website. So that's the future, that a website bought up a magazine. I think it was for $1, actually. New proposed courses and programs, and these are the correspond with the books that are back there. There's a new hospitality and tourism course in the business department, astronomy and geology and science, the new AP human geography in social studies, and then Math 180, which is an offshoot of Read 180, which is very well known around across the country. Math 180 is a program that we're using with 6th grade starting next year. We're really excited about it because we've had great success with Read 180. It's a program through Scholastic. So we're excited about doing a Math 180 with kids who need extra math help. This is just a list of the proposed textbooks. There's a variety of departments, as you can see. Some are the new ones, some are just new books to correspond with current classes. We started back in the wintertime with a 4.2% tax increase, which is above our index. Our index this year is 3.1, so we had a lot of work to do. After a couple months and some good revenue coming from Harrisburg, we were able to go from 4.2 to 2.4. Last week we came to you with a budget of 0.68, and then the work that was done by the consensus of the people that were here last week, we were able to move that 0.68 down to a 0.61. And we'll talk about that as we get deeper into these numbers. Oh, sorry. Again, when we were at 4.2%, we were at a shortfall of about 1.85 million, and that was just with a rollover budget, with no new revenues, no reduction in expenditures, just a rollover from this year. So we had a lot of work to do to get from that 4.2 to a lower number. Yeah, the right one.
And I'm gonna go through these pretty quick because 3 weeks ago, the board saw most of these. Some of them did change in the last 3 weeks because of the actions we did last week. And again, we're gonna have this on the website, so we wanted to get it as accurate as we could. We have 53.5% of our budget is on property taxes. So one of the biggest things we need to do is track the growth and assess value. And again, years ago when we were building and a lot of going on, you can see that in 07-08, we received 1.3 million. My projection this year, based on every month I get an update from the Pike County Assessment Office, is $154,000 increase in new properties that have went on rolls since July 1st of last year. There's your 154. And again, when you're going through these, remember, like I said last time, we started at 1.8 million, and you got to think a little bit about next year too, to think, are these going to reoccur next year? Real estate taxes, the collection rate this past year went from 92.08 to 92.24 in 15-16. We've used 92.4, the higher rate. That's $70,000 more than last year's budget. Real estate transfer taxes, we're actually probably not going to hit our mark this year, but I am projecting a $25,000 increase just because the economy is improving. Delinquent real estate tax is a tough number to come up with, but we're projecting an increase budget to budget of $225,000. Interest earnings, $20,000. IDA pass-through money of $47,000 reduction. And adult community ed, because the pool will be completed, should show an increase of $21,000 because a lot of those programs are related to the pool. I just want to take a second. I don't know how many have been following the state budget, and they've been trying for a couple of years to get a formula developed. And the reason I bring this up is because for many years, we were able to receive extra funds because of our low cost per pupil or for various reasons, okay? It seems like it's going to be getting steam and going to be the way we're going to be funded in the future. It's kind of out of our control, meaning they're trying to make it so it counts students, related to poverty and English language proficiency. They're going to have an adjustment for geographically dispersed school districts, tax burden. And this was from a governor's report after the commission got done. And the only reason I say that is we don't control any of those numbers. I mean, we really don't. So whatever comes out of those formula, if they go that route, those ways of getting the money, like because of our low cost per pupil, I think are going to go by the wayside, and it's going to be driven mostly upon your enrollment. So we got to keep that in mind.
And a lot of those factors don't help us when you compare us to other districts. That's a big thing moving forward.
Since last week, I'm going to track what has been going on with the basic instructional subsidy, Ready to Learn, and special education. If you recall, when I presented on April 21st, in our original budget, draft budget, John and I kind of put together, we go for a 1% increase in those funds. Last week, we talked about adding another 1% on top of that, if you recall. Friday and Monday, Peg, who checks on the grant revenues, and you'll find that this happens this time of year, came to me and said Title I appears we're going to be getting $64,000 more, and pre-K $36,000 more. John and I talked, and actually over the weekend, and we thought that the board was a little bit concerned about going to 2% last week, and so we talked about somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 by various board members. So what we're presenting tonight is keeping the same tax increase in this proposal at 0.61. But what we did was took the projected state funding and the instructional subsidy, Ready to Learn, and special ed from 2%, 0.41% now after adjusting, meaning taking the pre-K and the Title I up and dropping the risk, or we're going to call it, from whatever the state budget may come through, from 2% down to 1.41. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay.
In a later slide, we'll show you what the budget would look like if we kept it at 2%. So we'll show you that, which would drive the tax rate down. We'll show you that in a few slides.
Yeah, under the whole harmless, aren't we guaranteed 2%?
Harmless just means you won't get less money than you got this year.
But it's from 2% increase to a 7.34% increase every year. So what?
No, they're not guaranteeing us any increase. They're just promising us they won't decrease it in the whole harmless language.
2% or any percent. And actually, the technically, the way that a couple slides ago on the fair funding formula, the whole harmless is going to be based on 13-14, I believe, for special education, 14-15 for the other two categories of money. So
Right, but we've been hearing for how many years now, the different formulas. I mean, ever since SB left and the Randall bonuses went out after the TANF money dried up. Funding every single year. What's to believe that all of a sudden this fair funding group that came about that you testified in front of, John? What's to say that all of a sudden we're going to get the standardized formula when we haven't had it in how many years?
Right. It's been a long time, and that's why they had that joint commission to come up with a formula so people would know going forward some kind of predictability or reliability in funding. And the legislature is on board. Both Republican parties in the House and the Senate are on board, and it's going. So that's why I'm worried about some of those factors like the ELL and the special ed. But we'll talk to you about what this would look like if we change this back to 2%. That's on a later slide. Okay.
but say how we get, or why we believe that is the legislators implemented this formula for the funding that they finally just approved the budget a month ago.
Yeah.
The governor vetoed it, or no, threatened to veto it, and he never signed the bill. So the legislators had enough to override his veto, if he did veto it, to implement this formula instead of doing what he was wanting to do, was replace the Corbett administration cuts first. So this formula is getting one. But I mean, we would, and we don't know what the increase is going to be. You know, 1.5%, 2%. I mean, you would like to think you're going to receive it. It's just a matter of what kind of, you know, what cuts we're going to have. But I do think this formula is going to go forward. So anyway, again, budget to budget, the basic educational subsidies increase budget to budget $504,000. That's based upon 1.41% above the current years that they just approved. Bulk ed, 20,000 projected less. Special ed, we were aggressive this year on special ed, so getting next year's money is budget to budget is a $16,000 reduction. Transportation subsidy, because of our being more efficient and running our program with our bus contractor the way we do at state formula, which is doing very well. We're getting reimbursed, and they have a CPI formula-driven increase, so we're expecting $127,000 additional. Plan Con, and again, this is the reimbursement on the debt service for the building of the new school. Note on the bottom that this is if they get the implementation done during 16-17, meaning they passed in this last fiscal code bill for this budget money that they're going to go out and borrow, and where it's uncertain is whether it's going to be a reduction of our debt or traditionally they reimburse us. So there's a chance that, I mean, I put this on the revenue side, there's a chance when it all filters through, I'm hoping they get their act together and do it during 16-17, but there's a chance it may be a reduction of an expenditure. But I talked to our auditors and I think I'm all right doing it this way, but that's a wait and see too. But it's going to end up the same amount, but it could be a reduction on the expense instead of getting reimbursements on this side when they get their act together.
But what was the total reimbursement that we put in for? 2.5?
About 2.6 million. And there's also been some talk that they may go out and borrow the money and give it to school districts in a lump sum.
Right.
But again, I talked to our auditors, they would agree that that should be deferred over the length of the bond issue. So then this would hit the books about the length of our bond issue, 13 to 15 years.
I also read there's a school district suing them right now over this exact thing.
Oh yeah, there's districts.
That lawsuit's gonna really.
millions of dollars and they haven't seen their money yet. So we were fortunate that, we had a little bit this year, but next year is when because our 3 bond issues had hit. So we would expect it starting next year. So our timing is pretty good on this. The pre-K counts grant that I talked about, the Title I grant that I talked about, and the reimbursement on medical assistance, they're reimbursing for less things or less services. So I'm planning on a reduction there. But an end of all that is good news, $830,000 to the good. Operating expenditure decreases that we've talked about. Cyber schools, we're projecting $249,000 that we need less next year. Energy, $130,000. We took advantage of the $60,000 discount on buying those items that Gina had early. We took out the fuel escalation because we feel like in the discussion that Jack prompted and initiated that maybe we don't need to have it as a line item, that fuel prices may stay down below that index. And we did not have, last year was the first time we ever put additional money in for PCERS. And the budget we put together does not have the additional money in. But if you recall, next week or in October, we can talk about whether we want to put some money in there from whatever projected surplus there may be when we get to the fall.
Can I stop you?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. I should have said anytime.
At this point in the budget meeting, we were at a 1.38 and then we went up to 2%. And that extra, what was in between was that, if you go back to that last slide, I think that was like 347. We put extra money, that difference between where we were at to what we ended up, we put that towards pieces. That additional money is again written into this budget? That 347?
No.
Okay.
It's not
It was just last year's.
Yeah, it's just one shot.
So,
If you go
just
back,
go back to
slide,
that one
Billy.
slide, can
Go
you,
back,
does
the
that
left
thing go
one.
back one slide?
So see, it's not in there this year. We backed it out.
So that was just a one-time deal then?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
And just to clarify, let's just say we needed 10 million in that line item. And that line item as an expense went up to 10,347,000. It is gonna sit there as unspent. In October, that 347, if the board votes for that again, would be put it. The plan is to do that. The actual voting to commit that money, and we know it's gonna be unspent, will be done in October.
Okay.
And any additional on top of that if the board feels they wish.
So this over 350,000 plus the over 800,000 for OPEB right now will show up both as part of the surplus, 1.1 in surplus. And then like Billy said, in October, you'll move it to the PCERS fund and to the OPEB fund. So 1.1 million, you guys put it in this budget, but we don't move it until the end. So it's just been carried forward all school year and then it goes into the reserve accounts.
Some expenditure increases were for textbooks that you saw before on your approval. The energy cost for the 2 projects that will come online for next school year. Vocational education competitions, of which you got a little flavor of tonight, and the engineering, marching band, and the competitions. So we feel we need, as these clubs grow and are more successful, it does cost some more money. And once again, I always say about the averages, as far as success goes, I hope the average happens because we don't budget for the whole. We budget, try and match everything up for how successful they're going to be, but that's always a challenge, which on both ways, up and down. Ready?
And we talked about this before. Salary and benefits total over 78% of the total budget. You see salaries are just roughly 47% and benefits are a little over 31%. Oops. Just to talk about staffing, we eliminated 2 positions. One was through a retirement, one was through a resignation. So there's 2 positions that we eliminated going forward for next year that we won't use. The high school was able to absorb having 1 less phys ed teacher. And as I mentioned last week, the 5th grade from Dingman's Elementary going to Dingman's Middle, we can have 1 less 6th grade teacher at Dingman's Middle School next year. The new positions that are in this budget, 1.5 special ed teachers, a new music teacher, 2 new police officers, one for DVES and the second one for the Dingman's campus, the custodian to handle the increased square footage that we have with the two projects. 5 part-time IAs to help us with reading. It's 3 at the primary school, 1 at Chohola, 1 at DVES, and then 2 part-time IAs to help us as job coaches with the special ed kids going out to work in the community. Then a couple positions that were added during the course of this school year. So they weren't in our budget last spring, but we added them during the year. So now they got to get put into a future budget, which is this next budget. We increased the phys ed teacher from half-time to full-time once he got his driver ed certification, so we could do more driver ed. And then we added a part-time bus driver and a part-time monitor to go in our own fleet with the special ed runs. So these are new for next year. These were things that had to happen in the current budget. So through the attrition with the retirements and resignations, et cetera, we saved over $500,000. With our new positions, we added back $400,000. We added $21,000 for the expansion of co-curriculars for an extra $3,000 for clubs and intramurals and things of that nature at each school. So we had a net decrease in the salary line of $126,000. This is just a reminder of the money that's generated through salaries and benefits. Next year, the professional staff gets a 2.80% raise. The classified staff gets 65 cents an hour, and the administrators get 2.75. And that totals an increase in our salary line of $1.135 million. And Billy, he loves to use it, so let him do it.
Your favorite acronym. Is that an acronym?
Yeah, sure.
It's just not 4 letters. Total expenditures. This is just a slide to give you the impact of the retirement system. The total expenditures for 16-17 are then proposed is $78.2 million. The total expenditures for last year's the budget we're in this year is 75.6. So the total expenditure increase is 2.6 million or 3.47%. Just the retirement line item is going up 1.4 million or 1.9% of the 3.47% is strictly to pay for the retirement system. So all the other expenditure increases net out to about 1.2 million or a 1.57% increase. After you take everything we showed you that increased with the expenditures that decreased and attrition and things like that, 1.57. And again, just the line item for PSERS is a total of about 11 million on the expense side. About 55% comes back in state reimbursement for 6 million on the revenue side. So that net cost is close to $5 million. The current year we're in, that net cost was $4,127,000. So the increased cost net is just over $800,000 for the retirement. And again, understand that this is going to be on the website so that the public can understand. Or what I did is 2 different slides like I did last time. I tried to project salary increases, and then the far right column with the, if you see the 3rd column there, shows what the rate's going to as it stands now. It's 25.84% in column 3 to go to 30.03 in the 16-17 budget, and then you can see it goes 32.04, 33.27, and then kind of stays fairly level there. And you can see the impact on the final column on the right, where there's your 809,000 impact this year, 469 projected for 17-18, 385, and so forth. But again, that includes projected salary increases and a tweak to, for example, the state reimbursement, because that's got a little factor in it too that fluctuates. But if you're just going to look at it, taking flat salaries, flat reimbursement, and just take the rate itself on the contribution that we have to make to PSERS, you can see the effect on the right-hand column, even if you didn't have pay raises, et cetera.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
Go back one slide.
Sure.
So the left-hand projected salaries, you project it out with the actual costs in our current contracts for 2020?
2020 for the teachers, 2021 for
So
support
you factored that in. Now, if we look back at the audit report, they tell us that they're using a factor of 310% of that number as the accrued liability. So if we're talking about how much PSERS is really costing, we're taking each of those numbers, multiplying it by 310%, difference that we're not funding. So the other slide is nice, but it doesn't have any basis in reality. This is the one that's going forward. So if we were to take 2020 at 40 million at 3.1%, we're at about $123 million in 4 years, as opposed to the $105 million that we currently owe. Is there any plan to pay for that? Now that we're removing just even the smallest amount that we put in PSERS last year, we're removing that and utilizing that to drive the tax rate down to 0.61.
The plan, as discussed last week, was to consider it from, putting more in it from operating surpluses if that was the discussion last week. I'm not sure where it's going to go this week. Yeah, this was just for analysis purposes only if everything was frozen. Let's go to other benefits. Health insurance, we were able to, because we're having a good year this year, we're giving some back there of $229,000. Tuition reimbursement, budget to budget again, I'm dropping that by about $34,000. Severance compensation, which we talked about at length last week, increasing $275,000. Workers' comp, increasing $31,000. That's pretty much just based upon salary increases. But if you recall, we did save about $230,000 last year by changing vendors, and they are a good company. And Social Security increase, it's $73,000. So the net of all those is an increase of $116,000.
So on the health insurance, you're anticipating about $20,000 a month, less than the $842 or $62 that we pay now.
No, actually, we're absorbing some of the increase. The actuaries, since Obamacare came in, the actuaries try and do some projection based on national trends. So the amount we're paying in right now, I'm saying was good this year, that we have covered our claims, and next year's increase it projected like 1.5%. We're able to absorb that from the underspending in theory that we had this year, and then about 1,000 on top of that.
So we're going to see our monthly.
No. We're using the money from the trust that we gained this year to help offset some of the expense for next year.
So the reserves in the trust, which are
Correct.
Overfunded, are helping us drive down
this, right. Now, there's always the chance next year that if we underspend it, that we may not have to worry about the 229, but I can't tell you that yet. But the plan is that our reserves are healthy to the point where I believe we can take 229,000 to reduce to because of the good year we've had.
Healthy reserves are a good thing.
They're wonderful. And but claims, you just don't know. But you kind of get a track record and things like that. I think what really happened is Northeastern, or maybe even, I'd say Northeastern PA, the national trend by the actuaries, they projected it at like 7 or 8% on cost increases, and we've only recognized 3 to 4 over the last couple of years. So that's how it's helped, because they determine the number too. It goes on people's W-2 forms now. So it's almost like you need a third party to kind of come up with that number. So that's when the actuary got involved. So I think our local trend has been less than the national trend.
And on the health insurance side of things, there was a time when we were underfunded in our reserves.
Yes.
And the board made a conscious effort to put money into those reserves, which is now showing the fruition that you're.
There's no question. Yeah. When we were having those, what are you going to do with the surplus discussion years ago? And there was talk then, we may have had a year where you lost $1 million, not lost, but revenues minus expenses were $1 million based on what was projected to get in, and based upon what type of health insurance claims you have too. So, yeah, there were years when we had to do that. Good
We're in
point.
a deficit situation. Now, how healthy are our reserves, the trust? Are we 6 months? Are we 8 months? Are we 2 years? I don't know.
We are probably in the neighborhood of, they have guidelines. You gotta have a minimum of 4. You can't take what I'm doing here until you at least have 6. So we're probably 3 to 4 months in excess of that. So worry about those $1.5 million.
Because every month is
800 some thousand dollars, right? Right.
So we're 3 to 4 months
Above the 6.
Right, say $3.5 million with that reserve.
What was the?
And that's a guess, because I mean, I still have 3 more months this year. You know what I mean? So I'm projecting kind of, but
What was the increase? I mean, we saw it was projected 44,000 in our last work session
right.
for workers' comp, and then it dropped to 31,000.
We were able to whack up our, that was a projection, and I got a better number from our broker, that they tried to keep our premium flat. The only increase was a small adjustment to experience modification and wage increases. Okay, good question. This is for the public, and you guys have seen it enough. This is everything that could happen to a budget, so, in my disclaimer slide.
Pretty big disclaimer.
If it wasn't written by an attorney, it had to be written by an accountant, right? And all the things.
Michael wrote that thing.
I defer to you.
So just to go back to a little budget summary, the total revenues with no tax increase would be 77.9, and our expenses would be 78.1. So that would create a deficit with no tax increase right now, a deficit of 269. So raising taxes 0.61 provides the revenue to balance that out. Tax increase equals roughly 441, but we only need a 0.61 to balance out that number. Here's a history of our millage rates. You'll see back in 07, 08, there was a tax increase of just about 2%. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros in a row after that. So the same tax rate for 6 years consecutively. And then we've had a 2.3, a 2.8, a 2.0, and then this draft has a 0.61 in it. This is just about the cost of a tax increase for the average homestead. If you raise taxes 0.61%, the average homestead here, and you'll see the average homestead assessed value is 27,050. Their annual tax increase would be $17.85 a year, or $1.50 a month. Legal max of our Act 1 index this year is 3.1%. So even if you went all the way, if you had gone all the way up to that 3.1, the average house would have a $90 a year increase, which is about $7.50 a month. So the work that you've done has taken it from $7.50 a month to $1.50 a month. Now this talks about the revenues that we get from the slots machines across Pennsylvania. And when you use that average homestead, $160 to a $380 reduction every year, which works out to about a 12 to 15% reduction in taxes because of the revenue that comes from the slots. And if the cumulative through next year would be people have saved roughly $3,300 if that's their homestead. They've saved roughly $3,300 in school taxes because of the slots revenue. So that's definitely something that's a wonderful thing for us. All right, here's your state property tax reduction from slot revenues. Every year after they do the allocation, there's always some adjustments that have to be made. And then you'll see as you follow these numbers through, and you come on down through the number of approved farmsteads and homesteads, you'll see the average savings, the average property tax reduction per homestead or per farmstead is this year is slated to be $373. That's how much everybody's saving, thanks to the people that go to Mohegan Sun and places like that. This is what we call the Bill Greenlaw slide. We put this in years ago when Bill was here. We should probably give him like credit at the bottom to talk about the cost of things. Since 07, 08, all the way through, and then we talked about this last week too, the cost of living increase for Social Security, just as a barometer, Social Security has gone up 16.6%. The CPI, the Consumer Price Index, has gone up 16.1. The maximum that the board was allowed to raise taxes, according to the Act 1 index, without exceeding the index, the Act 1 index taxes could have been raised 32.2%. And the actual millage increase that the boards here at DV have done over that same time is 9%. This is good. This is a great slide to show worst case scenario, what they're up against CPI, what the retirees are up against Social Security, and how the good job you guys have done compared to those numbers.
The thing I've always disagreed about Mr. Greenlaw's slide is it takes those 6 zeros into account. And of half of those years, federal bailout money was going on. So I give great credit to the years when we were able to accomplish that without federal bailout money. In actuality, you had boards here that just said no to everything. Okay, that's why you end up at 0. Our disagreement last week came about I go back 3 years.
Here and here, right? Yep.
Again, started raising taxes.
Yes.
And my argument last week is we've been above the cost of living adjustment in those 3 years.
Right, you're talking 7% versus 3.2.
I know we can go back and put on all those zeros and stuff like that.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. If you want to look at a 3-year range, absolutely. We've raised taxes more than Social Security has gone up. But great slide to show over the course of time what the board has done compared to revenue increases for people versus tax increases. It is a good slide in that respect.
No, I agree with you, but you know, there was a lot of things went on at that time. At that time, Governor Rendell's money, that ended. You know, and then Governor Corbett came in. We didn't have to look, we were having that extra federal bailout money when he came in. So a lot of the things ended right at that last 0.
Well, this slide will look even nicer next year because the 2%er will disappear and it'll be replaced by something smaller. So it'll look even, because I don't think you don't seem to be in the mood to go above 1.99 tonight unless I'm reading it wrong. So this is going to look even better next year.
I can look just because I kind of anticipated that question in that costing out study, which was based upon our low cost per pupil. And you can't ignore that. We received in 0809, we received 800,000 additional because of our low cost per pupil, and 1.1 million in one of those years. That's 0 because of our low cost per pupil. We got that from the state, and that has stayed in our base, which is wonderful. And the other thing was we'll see that slide in a second, but we were able to take, because the boards had approved debt instead of 30, we were able to drop our debt service in order to help get those zeros also. And then, of course, when we were reducing enrollment, we had attrition, for which we didn't replace a lot of people, and in addition to the federal money. No,
Governor Rendell's costing out was marvelous. It was a wonderful thing for us as a school district, but it was no miracle to pull off on the federal government. Once the federal government stopped giving bailout money, costing out ended.
Certainly helped for a few years.
And the beauty of it, it stayed in our base.
But it's still in our base, and it shows the importance of advocating for those kinds of things. And there was a lot of advocacy going on for that costing out study. And we, right here at Delaware Valley, profited better than most other school districts.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. All right, this is just a pie chart for a summary of revenues. You'll see our local revenues total about 60%, over 38%, and then our federal revenues are roughly about 2%. This is just a history of our revenues by percentage. We will see the taller light blue is our local, the green is state, and then looks like it's a purple is your federal. So you can get a little look at, you see the fluctuations a little bit. I mean, here you go, Jack. These are those years where the ERA stimulus money was coming in.
I'm sorry, but going back 2 slides, to the Bill Greenlaw's line. The Act One index is based on average payroll increases across the state, if I'm correct. That's a major impetus.
Combination of a formula, state average weekly wage and some national elementary education factor. And I don't know which way this gets weighted more, but it's
The
something
weight goes
that's
toward the Pennsylvania payroll. So Jack, getting back to what you were saying, although Social Security hasn't kept up with our millage increase, the payroll of the people who are working in our area, in theory, has gone up 2.3, 2.8, 2.5 in the last 3 years. And our millage has actually been below that.
I'm not really concerned about the people like myself that are working. If I'm a member of the public and you levy your tax on me and I have a job to go to every week with an increasing salary every year, I don't really worry about it's just an additional cost of living expense to me, that's all it is. What I do is I worry about the people that don't have the option that I have.
But in the same respect, retirees pay no income tax with their income.
Well, they don't have any income with it. I mean, a lot of them,
Well, there are a lot of retirees here who do very well.
Right, there are.
Especially the ones that have retired from the Delaware Valley School District. And they don't pay any income tax at all.
I certainly
So the
hope to
only
be
tax
one of them.
What's that?
I certainly hope to be one of them. That's one of the reasons I lived in Pennsylvania.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think I'm one of the DV retirees. No, yeah. But what I'm saying is Bill's graph does show what the overall population can afford. There will always be a section of our population that can afford nothing. They can't even afford their current tax. As we go forward, we want to make sure that we're looking at the entire population. And there are some folks who are very, very wealthy and can afford 10 times the amount that we're putting on the table. But that, both sides of that bell curve, and Chuck knows all about bell curves, really don't matter. It's the bulk in the middle that matters when it comes to raising revenues. I'm just concerned we're not raising enough revenue. For the long haul, we certainly have enough revenue for the next 12 months in this budget here. If you look forward, if you're forward thinking, thing with our reserves of OPEB, capital reserves, PSERS, uncompensated absences, as we've done with our healthcare reserve, which is you want it to be healthy and overfunded for when the time comes. In the Bible it says, during the 7 years of feast, you save for the 7 years of famine. It's a real good equation to look at that we've had since 2010, let's say. We've had increases in payroll. We need to be saving, because there will come a time, we're going to go into another recession at some point. It happens every 10 to 12, 15 years. 15 would be a long time, but every 10 years. And when that recession comes, you won't be able to raise any additional funds. So I really think our 0.61 is downplaying the magnitude of our need to put money away for reserves. Thank you.
Okay, this pie chart is a summary of expenditures.
The other saving grace to that is, Jack, I know you read probably the same financials that I read. Inflation is everybody to increase, and the cost of living adjustment, the minimum projection that I've read from any periodical or any financial institution, percent increase. So I agree with you with your 7-year feast and famine. I'm just hoping that, the financial institutions and the Fed are correct in their assumptions that cost of living is going to go, because we can get into the first year of the 7 years of feast. We've all had the famine, that's for sure. Nobody likes it.
This is another pie chart just to show you the breakdown of expenditures by the different categories. And then we jump into the major budget functions. I'm not going to bore you going through them. You have them in your book if you want to refer to them, but they're really here more for the public display that goes on the website tomorrow. So I'll just scroll through those. The last thing I will talk about is in the 5900 code is the budgetary reserve at 300. Last week we talked about leaving that at 300 with the 0.61 tax increase, the 0.61% tax increase. And then this is just an explanatory slide. Remember, we talked about this last week to explain to people, why do you have a budgetary reserve? It's like a family savings account for when something goes wrong, so that you don't have to put something on a credit card and pay interest. We talked about that last week, so we don't need to talk about it again. And of the 300,000 in budgetary reserve, we had said that we would slate 50,000, set 50,000 of that 300 aside in case we need future bus monitors for our special ed buses. So that note's at the bottom too, so you'll see that.
So John, I'm sorry, going
Yeah,
back
sure.
to the slide, I'm catching up as you're going.
Yeah, no,
I wasn't here last
yeah.
week, sorry. Going back one slide to page 41, where it says transfers to capital reserve, future CT and other. Could you just elaborate on that and how it fits into the plan con number of 168?
The plan con number is based upon the projected cost of certain parts of the building.
At the elementary school.
Yeah, at the elementary school. So that's kind of already been done, meaning that the contracts have been awarded, so the expenses are already in the plan con process. And between our financial advisors and that process, there's A, B, C, D, B, all the way up through.
So that 168 is not that number at all?
No. The 168 I'm doing traditionally. We haven't had plan con reimbursement in a while. Traditionally, it came through as a revenue of 168.
And does it come required or restricted to be used for debt service?
You get it because you're paying debt service.
So when it comes in,
right,
they're expecting to see it on the debt service side of things?
No.
No, it goes right into the general fund.
Typically, no. However, PSBA 2 days ago at noon had a webinar, and they don't know exactly how they're going to do it. And we're right on the bubble again, because we just did it from bond issues. The state can't, you would think it would make sense to just go borrow the money at low interest and just pay us back. They can't do that because under their laws, it's the payout of plan con to the districts is an operating expense, not like they're going to build a building. So they can't go out and do that. What they can do is use the borrowing to, my understanding is defease or like if our, Jack, I think mentioned the number 2.5 million or 2.6 right in that area. They would go and take every school district that's owed money and defease those bonds that we owe and then pay us back pro rata over. So you still get your 2.5 million, but they're going to maybe reduce the debt service on $2.5 million worth of bills. You see what I mean?
Getting it, yes.
Yeah, but even I talked to our bond council yesterday, and they're not clear how it's going to happen. The state, it just passed the fiscal code. They don't know what they're going to do. They're more right. They want to do two ways. They want to get the people that are owed money taken care of first somehow, and then that next wave. And we're right on the cusp of whether we're going to be in the first wave or second. But either way, they're saying that districts are going to get their pro rata share.
To be used for the general fund.
To be used for the general fund, either as a revenue or a reduction of debt service.
That would be the plan.
That's the plan.
Somehow I just don't have a lot of faith in Harrisburg and plan to borrow their way out of debt. Well, it's just not a sound financial way of
But
doing
the
things.
good news there is, again, it was the fiscal code bill that, not veto, but he would have been overridden. The legislators understand they had an obligation to schools because the whole process started for a lot of these schools many, many years. I mean, us 3 or 4 years ago, but to many schools, some of these schools are owed $2 and $3 million in debt reimbursement, and they're sitting there like they can't even make payroll. So the first.
Or Western Wayne, they've been in their building for several years and they still haven't seen a dime yet. You know, so they're way behind the 8 ball.
So they'll be able to take a $3 or $4 or $5 million amount and just put it in their general fund.
And they have, I think they have, just not to get off on them, but I think they have no reserves. They've drained everything. So they could use it to replenish their reserves too, because they're in such bad shape.
Well, what I'd like to see is like we talked about last week about the $3 million for the school, the gym and the pool, moving from capital investment out to the construction fund so that can be paid off. Well, that's a loss of $3 million to that account. I'd like to see that 2.5. I'd like you to call me up next
week and tell me you got a check for 2.5 million, so we can put it right back in. And we're just rolling down 500,000.
Well, except that
I don't think I'll be getting a phone call.
the auditors, the discussion I had with the auditors is because the traditional revenue is that they would take it over the length of the bond issue. Even if I got 2.5 million, I would think it would stay in the general fund and then be booked $168,000 a year for 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would build your reserve, you book it into cash, and you then have committed fund balance to capital reserve with debt service?
I see it being a deferred revenue whereby I just put it on there to help the taxes this year, and 168 will hit for the next 14 years.
As a deferred revenue?
Right.
But we already received it.
But it wouldn't be booked.
They wouldn't let you
You'd
book
book
it all
it
at
through
once.
the length of the bond issue. Prorated.
I'd love to see his opinion on that, how he's getting to that. I can see putting it on the books as cash, you got your 2.5 in, but then you're putting the rest of it into a capital reserve. But to say we're not really receiving it and deferring it over 15 years, I'd like to see his back.
I'd like to see it too.
Anyway, we'll press on, because that's a debate for another day. Billy, you want to just explain this slide a little bit?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, debt service, the debt service, line 10 to the total general fund was in the neighborhood of $6.4 million. You can see that we have taken that down as bonds were paid off. Again, this board has been very good about paying bonds off in 13 to 15 years. It is a great benefit for the taxpayers as far as the amount of money is spent. And so as we were decreasing, and then we had to try and drop it off at a level we knew we needed a new school and different projects, district-wide, HVAC, we had projects that Marvin had a few years ago, all of those projects, plus we know we're talking about CTE. The dropping that debt and leaving it right there at about that $3 million mark does give you the ability, if you want to if you proceed with it, to borrow the $10 million in its service.
For the CTE project, the 10 million.
Right, so it's paying for all our bond issues, plus you do have the ability to do the CTE project, if you wish. And then a few years ago, from an internal service fund, it was called, the board made a decision that over the next 13 to 15 years, the length of the bond issue, they would put $160,000 a year towards the debt and deplete that fund. And here you'll see that you'd go out basically to the length of all the bond issues when they're due. The first year is less is because that's all the interest that was on the first year of the first borrowing we did for the elementary school.
It was a great plan that you guys put together, because the money runs out when the bonds are paid off. So you don't have to worry about a hole somewhere where the money lasts 10 years, but the bonds are 15, and now you're scrambling in year 11. So it was a really great plan.
Not to go back to that, I picture if the government or the state ends up borrowing the money and paying off some of our debt, I picture a schedule that looks very similar to that they're going to decrease our debt service by that amount.
Right, that's the slide before that on 43. I thought you'd have in there the 168 for the whole.
No, I'm treating it the traditional way that we're going to get the revenue.
Offset
We're right on the bubble. We're right on the bubble. So.
Bill, that 2.3, I trust that we're,
right.
That's not it.
Excuse me?
That 2.3, we're drawing some kind of interest on
Yes.
CDs together.
Yes.
I know it's not a lot, but it adds up over time.
Yeah.
Especially by the time we get to 20,
Right.
30, and I don't think I'll be here, but it'd be nice to some.
And I put
4-year terms. It's not that many elections.
I don't know.
I built some sort of an interest earnings into the payment there.
I mean, on Earth, John, not sitting here. I mean, here on Earth in 2030.
Morbid Jack, I'm sorry.
You
You're a young guy. I think you said you're 53, right?
53, yeah.
Now, our board policy and I don't know if it's state law or state regs talks about, there has to be a slide in your presentation about fund balance analysis. We are allowed by law to have an uncommitted fund balance of up to 8%. So here's just an example of, based on our budget, what 4%, 5, 6, 7, and 8%. So that's how much you could have an uncommitted fund balance. is the maximum is 6.255, but we have nothing. Our current unassigned fund balance is 0, and it's been 0 for as long as I can remember. But this slide is just a slide that is required to be in there. I wanted to bring it up that we don't have uncommitted fund balance. This is Billy's favorite slide. It shows we have the lowest cost per pupil of the 13 districts in the IU. Last year was the first time, remember, we think one district was cooking the books a little bit because we were in 12th place, not 13th, for the first time in a long, long time. But we're happy to say by $3, we're back. We're back the lowest by $3. You couldn't have planned that if you tried. How funny is that? We looked at it, we're like, that's unreal. That we were so lucky. So, so there you see. You know, of course, we don't tell you who they are, but we know who they are. You know, but we're very fortunate. I mean, look at those kids coming through tonight, and all the things that we're doing, and we're still doing it in a very cost-effective manner. You should all be really proud of that.
Billy's slide better than Bill Green.
This is the one that Bill showed you the week I wasn't here. Here you'll see your cost, your national average of spending per student by district. Here's your overspending and underspending, and you'll see, you know, a lot of green in this area in the Mid-Atlantic, but there's one little morsel, one little nugget of orange right there, and when you blow it up, there's Delaware Valley School District in Pike County. That's unbelievable. I mean, that you couldn't get a better graphic than that to prove the point of what a great job that we're able to do budgetarily, and then still have the accolades that we talked about at the beginning of the slides. Now that's the end of the formal presentation. Pam had asked me to put a slide up with some talking points to help kick off the conversation tonight. Right now, based on the conversation last week that we went around and around for a couple hours, we left the other night with a 0.61% tax increase. So that's what we did the presentation for you tonight at 0.61. So it's because we got a little extra pre-K and Title I money, we backed off how much we thought the state money. We didn't build the full 2% of increased state aid in because we got this money that we were unsure about the 2%. If you were to keep it at 2%, if you were to not move that number from 2% increase in state money down to 1.41 like we did tonight, if you left that at 2 and you added in the new Title I money and the new pre-K, your tax increase would actually be 0.38. Jack.
What was the Title I money we got? How much was that?
Was it 70 something? 66. It
66.
was in one of those earlier slides on federal and state revenue.
Can you just explain what the Title I money is? Because I know Corey and Dawn, they're new on this board. I don't know if they know. Do you guys know what Title I money is?
We use it in our 3 elementary schools that have the highest percentage of free and reduced lunch, and that supports our remedial reading programs.
And Title I was created with President Johnson's War on Poverty in the 60s to funnel money to poorer schools to try to help counterbalance, you know, all the inequities of. And the program has been around since the 60s. They don't really give it much more money. Most years, they don't give any more money unless you're a big city. The big cities they changed the formula from using from the census numbers to the free and reduced numbers. And it basically skewed it towards the big cities and against us. So our money is relatively flat most years. Some years it even goes down. So we were tickled last Friday when Peg got the Title I money.
6,000?
That one was 60, and then pre-K was
64,000 for the Title I and 36,000 for the pre-K.
Is that an indication that our poverty level went up?
They have not really explained why they adjusted it up. It's
So if
just.
it's based on free and reduced lunch, I think we could be pretty accurate in making that.
Yeah, unless they made the pot bigger in Washington.
Right.
You know, because they're printing money down there. Nothing to back it up, but they're printing it. You know,
They gave us an additional 36 in pre-K as well?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you increased your state to learn special ed, if you increase that by 2% like we did last week, that would put your tax rate at 0.38 instead of 0.61. Now that you have that new money popping in. If you wanted to go, Pam had asked about the 0, If you want to go to zero, then we still have to find another 169,000 either in expenditure decreases or revenue increases or a combination of both. So we have to come up with another 169 on one or both sides of the ledger if you want it to go to zero. So we're going to stop our presentation so that you guys can have a conversation about what you want to vote on, because you'll notice the agenda has holes in the, so that you guys can have a conversation and then we can plug in the holes.
So before you sit, I just was wondering if you could answer a couple of questions about some reserves we appear to have, and I'm not positive that we do. Is that okay, or do you want to?
I'm just asking for a 10-minute break or 5-minute break.
Oh,
I've been sitting for 2 hours.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's all.
We'll leave this up, we'll take a break, and we'll shake
That's
hands.
good. We can go over these with you. the 280,000 in the SD fund. So
We increased.
Oh,
that we just recently received.
no. Let me first go by saying my projection is that that's gonna be offset with some monies we're not gonna get. And so let's just, yeah, I'm gonna make a projection right now, 190,000 surplus on the revenue side. If you recall, so that's all built in there, meaning I'm projecting current real estate taxes to be to the, and understand, there's still 3 more months left, or technically 2 to 3 more months left, plus what happens in the summer. Current real estate taxes, I'm projecting an 80,000 plus. Real estate transfer, I'm projecting 50,000 to the minus. Now, this is how much I think we're gonna get versus what we budgeted. Head Start, 14,000 minus. IDEA, 47,000 minus. Adult Ed, 30,000 minus. Dyslexia grant plus 15. The basic ed and ready to learn plus 300. Special ed minus 52. Transportation plus 64. Social Security reimbursement minus 10. Retirement reimbursement minus 33. Pre-K counts plus 11. Voc ed minus 20,000. Impact aid that I talked to Jack about the other day, plus 29. And medical assistance minus 50. The net of all that, at my best guess right now, is 190,000. Traditionally, what would happen, if you remember last year's October meeting, I would come to you and say, on the revenue side, we had a surplus of 190,000 to do with that. And typically, then you would decide either to put it towards PSERS, OPEB, or transfer it to capital reserve. Kind of the combination. When I say that it's a perfect year to tell you that I hope the average of everything happens, because I think I mentioned as many negatives as I did positives in my guess. And again, I specialize, it's really tough to project. We're really only have revenues for April 30th. And what's not on there is the prediction on delinquent taxes yet. Give you an idea about delinquent taxes, and I thought I'd better give an example. April of 2015, which was last April, we got 397,000. Now, we only get paid this quarterly, but I checked back with the county and asked, could you give me something on a monthly basis, even though you only pay us quarterly? 397,000. This April, 224. So that's $172,000 less than last April. I say can't tell you the number until July, of course, because I don't put the money there. But if I was to get 172,000 less in April, May, and June, 3 times 17 is, 500, about $500,000 less than I got the year before. But until I get to the end of the May, the other way. Let me give you another example. June of 2014, we received 442,000. June of 2015, we received 617,000. Just the opposite occurred than the first example I gave you. We received $170,000 more than we did the year before. So there's no, I can take my best guess, but the 190,000, which is a guess because I don't have real estate transfer tax, I still have other revenues that I can't predict. But the 190 is without taking because I can't predict yet on delinquent taxes. And another asterisk on delinquent taxes, I told you we had a very significant win in court against a taxpayer that I don't know when they're going to pay. But if they pay, then then that would be an asterisk to everything I just said. So to answer your question, Pam, 190 is my guess on the revenue side, for which you typically in October would do a commitment of fund balance.
Okay.
So that'd be a surplus of this year.
Bill, I had a question on impact aid. You said when we talked 699 and 33, and how are we netting out at 29,000 now?
The base amount that you typically annually get is $699. We have been the last few years since the federal government got their act together better, getting that. And then the other 29,000 is the final reconciliation on like 3 years ago and 4 years ago, kind of thing.
Right, okay, so we're still netting above 699, we're still getting that 699, okay.
And another asterisk on that is the president does not have it in his budget, but the legislators have been overriding him. They always make me nervous, but we're putting 699 in because the legislators typically went out because I have no idea why he wants to limit.
Okay,
And that amount is upcoming budget. Okay, it's committed. Okay.
what have we?
Before we get on to another topic, I want to talk about the previous topic. The, $3,100,000 you're budgeted for delinquent real estate taxes. If we look back at the last 3 years of actual 2012, 13, and 14, whatever I'm back at, it comes to $3.3 million per year. And this year, we've already received $2.2 million. And we budgeted 2.8. Yes, I agree we need an increase because we're even below the 3-year average. But it would seem to me there's 200,000 there that if all you're looking to do is drive down to a zero tax rate, that could do it alone. But I would think that we would take some of that money and dedicate it back to the PSERS number, which has been eliminated in its entirety. So I agree with Jack. Delinquent real estate taxes is an issue that, although it's hard, Bill, to come up with a real number, I think we have 3 years of history right in front of us.
Well,
So we can add it up.
I respectfully, what I said before, take your $2.2 million, and I just mentioned April of 16, you got 225,000. Okay? So if I take the 2.2 million and
Which
add,
is, okay, so this number of 2.2
is 3/4.
is not through the end of April.
No,
Because we got another,
they only pay a quarter.
right, so they paid us at the end of March. So now we have another, how much coming in?
If I was to get 200, like in April, we got 225,000. If I was to get 225,000, I would get 2,875,000 for the year. And what's budgeted there?
3.1. So
No, for the year we're in.
2.875.
You kidding me?
No, that's exactly the number.
I can't do that.
Yes, it is.
He knows his numbers, Jeff Fisher knows his numbers, that's why we said that.
But, you know, I can't tell you what that number is gonna be every month. I mean, Pam, you know delinquent tax.
Well, you
it
have
is a
3
crap.
years. So how much year is someone's paying?
So, and the other point I want to make about the reason I've been trying to make sure we're aware that we're not going to get that 3.4 million when our current collections of taxes keep going up. We can't collect it twice. So they're not going to, when you collect it at current, it doesn't go to delinquent. You see what I mean? So I'm just a little bit nervous so that if I get my 2.9, you know, so the 3.1, I don't think is too far out.
So we're gonna take that.
I mean, I don't think it's too low
We're taking that 200, we're taking. that.
based upon that last analysis I just did. So that's just my opinion.
Because how much is the amount that's owed to us by the large 2,000?
Yes.
And that's not factored into your 3.1 million at all for next year.
It made me more comfortable jacking it up a little bit, but doesn't mean that that's gonna be paid. I have a feeling that's gonna go right until the potential of losing the property or whatever, which is
2 years down the road, a couple of years.
but I could be wrong. I mean, I can't tell you what goes through the minds of delinquent
What's the
taxpayers.
real intangible number?
But it would seem to me that on an average basis, we're looking at 3.343 a year for the last 3 years. So
Off of that, the increase in the current collection rate. And understand that some of that, if you're gonna do that, and you want to do that, understand that it will be a future increase to the budget because you don't get that special $300,000 again. So, you know, building will look a whole lot like this. It certainly is feasible that taxpayer could pay within 2 years.
I have a question. So you anticipate that we're gonna have $190,000 of excess revenue come October that we can decide what to do with it. So is it a possibility, pick on poor Gina, who I know her budget was slashed when we had all those zeros, but I noticed in your budget, there's $38,500 for smart boards and $55,000 for PCs so since those were not recurring costs, they're not in the budget for this year, why can't we use the $190,000 to pay for those? Which brings it down to only looking for $96,000.
Next year, if you wanted to fund technology at the same level, then that slide that was 1.8 million, you're gonna start at 2.1 million following year.
But those aren't recurring costs.
But
they weren't budgeted last year.
They're not recurring costs, but what we fought really hard for with technology is making sure that we keep that budget, because while we may not need that particular piece of equipment, we have 5-year cycles with technology, so we're always needing additional equipment. It's just tough to, it's a choice of the board, but I know we also like to, programs and our technology up to hard, it's hard to cut.
That way we're not hit with the one big time expense.
Yes, and that happened when we turned around and it was about $1 million that we were in the hole with our technology, with our creaky laptops.
So it's a recurring
Yes,
cost
we're constantly,
than one big.
yes.
So in that same vein, along with the real estate delinquent taxes, there were some items that I thought maybe Bill, you overshot on. Interim real estate taxes, you went from 90 to 100, we're only at 50. So I think you were being a little generous there.
Okay, the one thing on that is, it only comes out twice a year, and I have not received the May. So I only have one.
So you got the
one, yeah. I mean, that's, so, and again, just the economy getting better.
See, I think that's one of the things we need to talk about. Is the economy getting better?
I don't know. I hope mine is.
Mine is.
If you look at the macro numbers, we sat here 3 or 4 years ago when unemployment was 10%. Now it's down to 5%. Now that's not an increase in a better economy. Believe it or not, we might be in the.
Are you speaking nationally?
Or
locally?
Pike County.
Well, that's why I asked about the federal food program, because I know for us at Sunshine Station, our number reduced and free lunches are way up. We have more poverty levels, more Head Start, and so forth. So we do see an increase in the lower economic status.
At a micro level, I'm talking about a macro level. They touted the fact that unemployment is down to 5%, around, where it was 10%. So my own opinion is this might be the best of the years because we haven't had a recession in 8 years, and there are always recessions. That's just the nature of economics. So while we're not having a recession, it seems to me that's the time to have these 2% tax increases as we go forward. Now, I know I'm not going to get 2%, but if you really want zero, I think you have the numbers right there. Take you to zero.
Jack, I would just like to add that there is a commitment, I think, from probably 9 members on this board, and if I'm speaking for someone erroneously, please correct me. There is a commitment to putting money into PSERS. That is doing it in October.
Well, this October, we already have the money we're putting into PSERS.
Well, I mean, additional.
Right. No, what I'm saying,
additional, not just what we've agreed.
the October for this budget would be 16, 17 October of that year, where we can make a commitment to put money into PSERS out of the surplus. It accomplishes the same thing. This year, we already know we have 347,000.
And that's where our thoughts are.
Jack, I always appreciate your numbers. I really appreciate your presence here because your numbers are good always, and I've said that around the county and I've said it in this room. I agree with the thing that I don't agree with the unemployment numbers in the county is a person with $100,000 a year job. They make $100,000 a year, they lose that job. So they go on the unemployment rolls, but then they come off the unemployment rolls because they now get a job for $60,000 a year. It's a net $40,000 a year loss. So I never balance it. I think I would feel he's recovering, but I know it's not healthy without an inflation factor. And I think that's the thing. As far as the pieces, Jack, every year comes October, the 3 years I've sat here, I've agreed with you. But and I'll be sitting here in October again. The thing that would make me more comfortable with the Pacers is I like doing it in October because I understand Bill's crystal ball, and I just like it to be clearer by October how much we're going to dedicate to the Pacers. But I do share what you say about Pacers is the truth. There's no lie in that. There's no masquerading. Those numbers are legitimate. So I appreciate the work you put into this very much.
When Billy talked about the $190,000 surplus on the revenue side, that would be something that number doesn't finalize until October. If you say, take that 190 and put it into the next budget, that's called deficit spending, and we don't want to do that, because then the following year, we're starting behind the 8 ball by 190. So, yes, use it for your PSERs, use it for your CapEx to help fund CTE in case it comes in at a higher rate, but we don't want to ever carry it to the budget.
Bring up on my screen here, when I go into the school district, I don't know if it's a problem with the website or not, I can't bring up last October's meeting. How much did we put in? How much did we transfer last year? Was it 1.8 million, 1.3? Just give me 1 second. I know you got all the answers in the magical folder.
Well, while Bill looks for that, I mean, is there a consensus among the board about the 2% at least? I mean, putting in for the 2%?
Not for me.
Not from you, okay.
No, I'm especially, when I look at the funding formula and, from what I'm hearing, it looks likely that it's going to move forward. I'm less comfortable with the 2% than I was even last Thursday. I think the move to the 1.4 makes a lot of sense, and staying at 0.61. That's where I'm at.
I agree with John. I just, we saw in an earlier slide that for the average household, we're talking about $1.50, 6.1%. And I think to try to bring that down to 85 cents at the risk of what I think would be fiscally irresponsible just doesn't make sense to me. I think 0.61 is an excellent tax rate that no one should be able to complain about, given what this district is doing, and to be fiscally responsible going forward. And anything less, I think, do things that I'm not comfortable with. So I agree with John. I'll vote for the 6.1, but nothing less.
Well, I would vote for the 6.1, but I would also vote for the 0, as long as there's a commitment from the board, and it's not just a verbal commitment, it's a motion that we make that puts a certain amount of the 16-17 surplus into PSERs.
I would do that in a heartbeat. See, me and you, Jack, we look at things from two different points of view, but we always come up to the same conclusion.
I think our surplus.
Don and Jessica would like to make that motion.
Well, I don't know what the.
Not the 15-16 surplus.
Yeah, let's be clear. No, it's already in 15-16. We don't have to worry about it. It's already in.
Right, so we're gonna have
What you're talking about is.
So we're gonna do this for the campus.
Well, we'll talk about it in October, but I'm saying for the 16-17 budget, which is what we're talking about, as long as there's a commitment from the board to put us.
Let's just get the elephant.
How do we know
I just want to be clear that we're talking about October 2017.
Yes.
When that decision's made.
It's already made now. It's made in advance.
Right.
If there's no surplus.
Well, we haven't made a decision what to do with the surplus for 15-16 about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not
working on the 15-16 budget now.
Understand, but the account you're talking about, the PSERs account, you're looking for monies to be added to it.
There will be monies added to it. Right now, it's $7.6 million. It will be $8 million in October of this year, because we've already last year budget to put it in there. I'd like to leave the money in the budget. In fact, one of the reasons you're getting down to 0.61 is because you pulled out the PSERs money. And using reserves to do things like that is I understand it from a political standpoint, from a financial standpoint, it's not a good thing. But if I can get a commitment that we're going to put the money back anyway, with that, whatever way you guys want to do it.
My concern is that we don't know what that is. We don't know if that's $50.
Well, then
$500,000.
I agree, but I can't get it back in the budget. So I'd rather take the second step of having a commitment to put it in there than have nothing.
So can I just?
Well, I think that commitment's there. He'd rather we lower it to 0.
Can I just?
No, I just want to have it on, I want to have it on the record. I don't want just to have a verbal commitment between the nine of us. I want it to be a motion. I'm sorry.
Can I just make a motion, and I've done this should be the third year in a row, just get the elephant out of the room. Can I make a motion that we go with a 0% tax? Can I make a motion that this year's tax increase be at 0%? I need a second.
Where are you getting the 169?
Jessica, just give me a second.
So we're not going to do motion G here? We're not going to do G?
Well, I just made a motion for a 0% tax increase, and Jesse just seconded it, so
May I just?
Discussion.
Yeah.
we can discuss it. Or call the question, or whatever you want to do.
So on the 0%, what are you cutting? To get to 0. Or what are you adding?
Not adding anything, there's, in that budget with the 0, there's still a $250,000 budgetary reserve. We are gonna have money left over, I don't wanna do deficit spending, but that's not really deficit spending, when you consider a month or a 2-month flow. Deficit spending. So, that 169,000 is covered in part of the 250, plus there's a lot of other money sitting on the table there, and I'd rather get to October with a clearer vision. And I do think that just once, I would like to see with the 0%, as we said, cost of living adjustment, go with 0. Because as I asked Bill the number from last year, in the 3 years that I've sat here, we've raised taxes, but at the end of the year, wound up with more money in reserve than we've raised taxes. So I just don't want to do that the 4th year. I just want to go with the 0 assessment thing.
Can I ask you a question? We're supposed to be, the motion should be to approve a budget. We're charged with approving a budget right now, not a percentage. So we have to have a budget that we approve to put, on the website to put to the public. I don't think we can pick a number and say, just make it happen. We have to give the administration direction of exactly what that budget's gonna be.
Well, 169 is included in, if you want to do it just the easier, simple way, out of the 250 budgetary reserve, we started with a $300,000 budgetary reserve. We took $50,000 out and we dedicated that to bus monitors, to a fund.
So that brings the reserve down to about
That
80,000.
brings our reserve down, but you've got a float, what they call in business a float, and we floated an awful lot of money. Now, that I'm not comfortable with.
No, budgetary reserve of $80,000.
Yeah, but it's not really, it's, you're calling it a budgetary reserve of $80,000, but the float is there.
I'm not comfortable checking.
To cover what Chuck just said, where would it come from? We need to take it from somewhere. So you take it for the float of the 2 months, and you put it back in because that's gonna be money. It's just a float. That's all it is.
In fact, I don't think it's just a float of money. No, it's $169,000 reduction in the budgetary item. That's what it is.
How many years prior did we have the 300,000?
You get 350 at one point.
350.
Yeah.
Yeah, how many- Has it always been 350?
It was for a long period of time.
More than that at the end of the year. So.
We have an expenditure increase of 3.47% in this budget. Did I read that right?
It's on that slide.
Okay.
Excuse me, yeah, that included, I think I broke that slide down to say, 3.47.
I guess I have a concern when we have an expenditure increase of 3.47% and we're having a revenue increase of 0.
Yeah, well, I want everybody to have an opportunity to speak first.
I have a question about the student activity fund. So from 14-15 to 15-16, there was an increase of 326,000. And then from 15-16 to next year, there's another 200,000. I know we talked about 21,000 additional for co-curriculars and the $17,000 for where is, I mean, that's, even taking that $38,000 out, it's almost $500,000 in 2 years, an increase. And it just doesn't look like it's reflected in Chris's budget.
Student activity.
The student activities,
The increases would have been, the way the contract was structured, the increases would be the salaries. For, and Chris didn't present salaries at night. That was based on the contracts that were approved last year. And it was weighted, more heavily weighted in the first 2 years of that contract than the final 3. Plus the addition of the 21,000 would be in there for,
So the advisors and coaches, it's an
Correct.
additional $500,000 for 2 years for their salaries.
I don't think it was a half.
From 14-15 to next year, it's $527,000 increase. So if we take out the 37,000, the 21,000 for co-curriculars and the $17,000 additional for.
Are you looking at the total budgets, or what are you looking at? I mean,
Do you mean, real?
The general fund, student activities.
It's the 10.32 numbers you're looking at?
Yes.
So we're right. So the adjusted budget last year was 2.314.
Right. And the year before it was 1.99. Sorry, 1.988. And now we're up to 2.515.
I'm pretty sure that's all salaries. Am I right?
yeah, but, you know, I mean, the salaries, and you gotta understand the PACERS is there under, that rate is on all the salaries too, that are on there. So salaries, you're talking about 14-15 to 16-17, right?
Right.
Right. 300 of it is salaries, that is benefits. And Chris's, the rest of that stuff that Chris presented was fairly flat. And that's what he had presented that night, because he doesn't present salaries and benefits.
So if we wanted to reduce that, we'd have to reduce people, which we've never discussed. I missed last week.
Yeah, but, I mean, from this budget to next year's budget, it's an increase of only 200,000.
It was front loaded like this.
Good question.
Yeah, it's 90,000.
But is that where you're taking some of your 169? Jack's taking it all out of budgetary reserve.
It was a question.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, salaries are up 90 and benefits are up 90 roughly.
This is where the breakdown of positions by department with salary would have been very helpful.
And we had all that in the negotiations. I mean, it's all.
Right, I wasn't there.
I know, but I'm just saying it was all available. The board didn't say only negotiate. But that's a way to fix that. Every department, every school, it's quite a piece of work.
Don't want to get to a zero by cutting programs. So we got to come up with better ideas than that. For the sake of a zero, we don't want to be cutting stuff for kids.
The only thing I'm gonna recommend, and I mentioned it last week, is because I gotta go, if the board votes on CTE, we gotta sell the bond. Okay, if there's 5 people that are absolutely adamant at 0, then, I mean, if that's what's going to happen, then I would not mess with, if it's inevitable that that's gonna happen, I would do it in revenues. Then it's easier for me to sell bonds that shows that don't have a structural deficit and that we didn't mess with the reserves. So if it's inevitable and people think that, and again, I'm trying to tighten it up as much as I can. So you even said, use the surplus. I said, make sure you slash that with a deficit because those revenues are not ever really guaranteed. So I get that, but I would rather see, if that's gonna happen, do it on the revenue side between the 2% from the state and tweak the delinquent taxes. Understand though, that could be one-time money because if my numbers are correct, but we do get, because that taxpayer pays, whether it's in 16, 17 or 17, 18, that it's gonna affect the future budget. And then keep the structure of, we didn't use any fund balance to, so therefore, the Moody's is gonna be talking to me and saying, okay, it looks like you got your place in order. And that's where you really save taxpayers money, is by not having what the state of Pennsylvania has, a structural deficit right now. So that's the only recommendation. If you're gonna go to zero, I recommend then you do it in revenue.
So I would give you a free rein on however you want to structure this. I mean, I don't want to tell you your job. I hate to do that. I hate when somebody tells me my job. So put it any which way you want, and I'll support you, as I have before. However you want to structure it, that's fine.
Well, it's hard, because John's not comfortable with 2%, so it's hard for me to sit here and say, and I can't tell you whether it's gonna be 2, 1.
We had the 2% come, I wasn't here last week, but we get a state that said, well, there's more money, and we're running a surplus. We're not going to have more money with it,
It just got
appeared out of
gut tradition, and then they said, what if we went with a 2 instead of a 1?
who that?
No, just a general discussion. I don't
Oh.
think it was any one pinpointed it.
I was a little shocked when I heard that we've gone from 1 to 2, when we were all a little hesitant on even getting the 1. So, you think we'll get the 1?
Yeah. I'm pretty confident. I'm confident on the 2.
But I mean, I don't know.
Well, then you've got your budget. Go with 2.
No, that's.
No, 2 gives you 0.38.
And we're still at the 169.
So we'd still have to increase our revenues, what, another 169? If they go to 2, if they use the 2% number, that solves 100,000. But we'd still need, right, to increase our revenues.
It's all being generated by just wiping out the Peters money from this year. It was 347. So there's 269 of it right there. So we're driving down the budget to 0 by not funding Peters for future obligations. We're funding this year, but not the increase. And I think that's just a tragic mistake for some future school board who will then be in the exact opposite scenario. I mean, they'll have to pay it, but they won't be incurring it.
There's also a trust scenario here, and I did hear from 2 board members who are willing to make a motion. I know we already have a motion, but after this, there could be a motion that there will be a commitment to research. I did hear that, because you mentioned you would be more comfortable with that.
Well, if we would do this at 0 and add on to G with the understanding that in the 16-17 budget will be dedicated and committed to Peters.
All of it?
Whatever it is.
No, he said surplus money. He didn't
Surplus,
say
I didn't say
that.
all, I said surplus money.
Well, how much of the surplus?
Um,
You know, we may have.
I agree with
But
you.
right here is where it's all coming out.
And
How
I
much
think
of
we
the
have
surplus?
another conversation.
Jack, Peters is very important. I agree with you 100%. I'm a little afraid of if that HB 76 ever gets going again, what that's gonna do to our district because of the amount of money that we have funded to them and how that's going to then trickle money down to us. But that aside, the amount of surplus that we have had year out, okay? So you're looking at putting that now, we're committing all of that to Peters, which I think a majority of us are willing to do. This can very easily be a 0 budget without hurting this district 1 iota.
Yeah, I'm saying, by taking the 347 that's in the budget and eliminating it, but saying at the end of this current budget, we're going to put back that money and commit to it in writing through a motion legally.
So
I'm okay with that.
would you be happy with, because what if we have $1 million in surplus? So would you be willing to say that we will commit up to,
Up to $1 million?
well, no, like up to the $347,000, well, of course.
He wants
But would
to
you
know.
be,
Go,
would
go,
you be
good
happy
going,
with
Jack.
up to the $347,000 that we're taking out of the budget? And that way that gives us a little bit of leeway if there's more than that, if there's something else that we want to put it towards debt service or something.
If all you're going to do is do the 347, why don't we just put it in there now?
Good point. See, the thing is, Jack,
Because you don't need it.
the reason that I don't, myself personally, Jack, every year I've sat here, my word has been good. I've sat with you and I've said to put it into phases. The
And we
only
did have
problem,
1 year where we put it into capital reserve.
but I asked you first, what are we doing this year,
And I
Jack?
acquiesced and
And I
said,
said,
you're right, Jack, since we're doing a CTE project. Now, we haven't done a CTE project. So I made that commitment. And I'm just asking.
my word to you, the commitment has been the same, it's just a gentleman's agreement.
The reason that I don't want to put a specific number in tonight is because I don't know Bill's crystal ball. I would feel more comfortable in October. But if you want a public commitment on a gentleman's agreement, which I've never gone back on to anybody in this county, I'll be there with you again because I was there with you for the first two.
But the October number, this October, we already have that number. We know what that is.
Well, we're gonna have a surplus this year.
We might do more
So
than
we could do more than
347. That was
347.
one person's suggestion, we may do.
So in addition to the 347, we won't use $1 million, we'll use that $500,000.
We don't know. That's the one
We'll
thing
use,
I don't want to
we'll
do.
use a percentage.
Nah.
We'll use 75% goes to Peasers, 25% goes to capital reserve for CTA.
I don't know how much she's gonna come up with.
It might be zero, and then our numbers are.
No, come on.
You're talking about 16, 17, right?
Yeah, he's not talking about this.
I have.
I'd rather have
The
this.
answer is zero.
I'd rather,
So there'd be no.
I'd rather have this conversation, when we know what the money is we're talking about here. I'd rather have that conversation then.
I'm just disappointed that the money that we worked hard to put in last year has been reduced out of this year's budget, and it's driving down this to a 0.61. There'd be no 0.61 if we had just left the Peasers number. I mean, Gina is defending her budget. Don't cut my budget.
And we're not.
But we're cutting Peasers. So I'm a
We've
little
still been
disappointed
very
because we know
fair to
that's
Peasers
the
along the way.
gorilla in the room. That's the thing that never goes away. Bill's charged 310% of an ever increasing number. And we can't rely on the state to pay it. We're responsible for 50% of that. So on $105 million, at a very minimum, we have to say we're responsible for $52,500,000, growing at a rate of about $2.5 million a year, about $200,000 a month, about $10,000 a week, about
But we haven't been negative. We haven't been
$7,000 a day that we're not funding. That's already being earned by these fine folks that work for us, that will have to get paid.
That's good.
You're welcome. Marvin wants his retirement.
Is there any other discussion?
I come back to the budgetary reserve. I mean, we haven't used it. This year's the first year we've used it for those salaries, and we're budgeting in for the increase that we have this year. So if we do drive it down, I support driving down the budgetary reserve.
But that affects our borrowing?
Well, yeah, am I hearing there's
We
five
were
people?
gonna eliminate it.
Am I hearing there's five people who
But
look like they're zero?
Well, that's what if we're done discussing it, is that what it looks like? Can I call the question?
Like, there's a question.
Can I get
I need to get the number.
Well, we have a question from the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Question.
Bill, did you
Do
have-
you wanna ask your
Oh,
question?
it's my question? If you drop the budgetary reserve to $80,000, so that I guess, how does that affect our ability to borrow?
Again, how about a combination? If five people on zero?
No, we gotta answer our question.
Yeah, we.
Will it affect our ability to borrow? That's my concern. If it's gonna cost us more
It
to
may have some
borrow,
effect. I may recommend doing a little bit more revenues and a little less with budgetary reserve and see if that flies.
We trust you.
If there's 5 for 0, then I would try the state revenue at the 2%. Jack mentioned delinquent taxes, have increased that 119,156. Take budgetary reserve from 300 down to 250. It shows you have a commitment, when I'm talking to Moody's, that we have that reserve there, that it saves me from taking too much risk to 50,000 on the other side. That would get you to zero, so. If that's what people wanted, then I would recommend that.
So it's just a 50,000 for the delinquent taxes, you said?
Basically, the slide we had, right there.
Right.
You're taking 100,000. Just from the bottom number, you're just subtracting 50,000 from the expense side to balance the budget, and then your motion would be 0%. And then the number would be 78,139,586 to put the budget on display. People have to understand, though, that this idea that there's gonna be surpluses all the time, we're tighten it as good as we can. There are no cushions going into these things, they just happen. You know, and so, just understand it's not always going to be. I know people are probably thinking I'm talking gibberish, but it's just not gonna be a recovery.
And I have one last comment before it goes, just about you speaking. And, you know, when we walked out of here a week ago, we were all patting each other on the back with the 0.61%. And there seems from conversations I'm hearing that, I'm just wondering, was there a board meeting this week that I wasn't invited to?
No, but I got a lot of individual phone calls and so did John.
That's comment number
And
one.
we did communicate.
Comment number two is I don't know what we get by going from 0.61 to 0.0. If there's going to be a parade for us down Main Street, I mean, what is the rationale for taking an already tax increase and asking Bill to do again what I called last week hocus pocus, and I'll say it again. I'm not comfortable asking him to do these things to reduce what is already a minimal tax increase. I don't think it does any favor to the taxpayers in this district.
Well, to the current taxpayers, it helps them. It's the future taxpayers that will have to bear the burden of what we're not doing now, because we're not funding all of our real obligations. People earn their pensions each year. They don't earn their pension after they retire. All that money is supposed to be there when they retire. John has mentioned in the past that in the state of New York, their pension is funded 100%. 100%. 100%. In Pennsylvania, we're not even at 50% anymore. And locally, we're not even at 10% now. So I think what we're doing is we're delaying a time bomb another year.
Well, I would just like to add to the conversation that anybody may call me anytime, and I do call John and text when people do have questions. I'll be there in a minute. I've sat here for almost 19 years during budget discussions, and I have listened through the years to yelling and screaming and cursing and arguments in the parking lot and so forth. I am so proud of this from every single one of you. You know, whether you're very involved in the process or minimally involved, this is how a budget process should operate. And if you have a question, it should be respected and answered, which has occurred. If you feel there's money in that budget that can be used to help your purpose, there's absolutely nothing wrong with coming in last minute, because that's why we're here tonight. We didn't come here just to rubber stamp. We came here to discuss this. It was not my understanding that it was finalized. So I just want to say, I think this has been a wonderful process. And I do believe that there is a huge commitment on this board to commit to PSERS. Very important, Jeff. So we are willing to add that onto the proposal. We had two people who are willing to make that.
All right, so I'll amend the motion.
Okay.
To include a wordsmith here, a commitment from the board to take future surpluses in the 16-17 budget and commit it to the PSERS fund.
No, because you have to make it.
Now, Pam just said that's what she wanted, so I have a second.
That sounds like 100%.
That does sound like 100%. We can't do that.
I'll go to 75%.
This should be separate. The budget should be separate, and then we can make a separate thing on our commitments. The motion that I have on, I'd like to have a vote on it.
But I'm just saying, Pam just said to me I can make an amendment to this. That's why I made the amendment. But we don't have a second. So it fails for lack of a second.
Can we vote on my motion?
Okay, we have to plug in some holes in your motion. G, Billy, if I'm right, we plug in the 0% tax increase, right? And then the mills would stay at 108.19, right? But we'd still be balanced at 78,189,586.
Because we're dropping 50 from the expenditure side. Okay. So it'd be 78,139,586.
Okay. And what do we say? We don't say increase at a millage rate. Remains at a millage rate.
Yep.
So I take out the word increase and put in remains.
Right.
At 108.19.
At 108.19. And then, the balance budget of revenues and expenditures would be 50,000 less, so it'd be 78,139,586.
Did you have a question?
I did. I know that, for some people, the 0% is important, and I understand the reasons why. But I also understand that you are stewards. And you not only have to rely, I mean, there are some things that Mr. Hessling has said that he can't put a number on yet. The delinquent taxes are not a sure thing. You have to, are you considering the risks of what, if we play devil's advocate and we say a lot of things go wrong all at once, which sometimes do happen, in what, because we're putting it to zero now, in what state are you going to leave the district in the future? Because you don't want to do not even a minimum. I mean, I think that's taking a very large risk, not only with for kids in the district, the teachers, the hardworking teachers that you have. I want to hear why the board now that it's so important that you're willing to take the risk to maybe put a future, in a couple of years, put the district in a very bad situation.
So I'll start the discussion. We've had 5 zeros in the past after very careful consideration, and we did not put our district at risk. We have not cut out any programs. We have not laid off any teachers. We have offered more to our students than most school districts across the state offer, provided so much that others cannot. And we have done that with 0% increases. And we can do it now with a 0% increase. We are talking about small items right now to bring us to a zero. We know that that money is there, and we're going to use that money to bring it to a zero. We are not putting anyone at risk. Jack has an excellent point about PSERS, and we are willing to cover that point. That's the only risk I see, is if we don't have responsibility to PSERS, and we are committed to it, and we just made that public commitment, and we're willing to do a motion to support that. To say that we have put this district at risk or are about to is not fair.
Especially over 169,000. I think if it came to 169,000, we'd make it up somewhere, so.
Yeah, and I would agree that we're not putting the district at risk this year. Okay, we're putting the district at risk in the future years. And we went from 5,700 students. So how did they make this magic appear? Well, we lost how many teachers?
Over 40 staff members.
40 staff members. So that's how these wonderful things are happening, that we can continue all these programs. Now, if someone said to me, well, over the next 6 years, we're going to lose another 1,000 students. Well, sure, we're going to have more money because we're never reducing the budget. Even when students leave, it's like losing customers and still having the same revenue. It's a wonderful thing. But it just seems to me that our discussions on PSERS don't match our magnitude of the problem. And we talked about it last year, and that's why we got the 347 in there. And my hope was that we'd always keep that 347 going forward. The administration has chosen, from what I understand, to get rid of that. That it was not something that came from any board member. It was the administration who chose to pull it out. I'm disappointed in that. I wonder sometimes if folks really understand that we have to pay this money. Not now, but in the future. And I've dealt with lots of folks who are planning for the future. They plan for their child's education. And their child is born and they say, I need a plan to put money away for college. And they do nothing. And then 5 years later, they say, my son's 5 years old. I need a plan to put money away for college. And then their son hits 15. And they say, I should have put money away because now I've got this giant bill in front of me to pay. And that's what's going to happen here. We're going to have to pay this. We're not putting enough money on the side for it. And it will eventually take all these nice programs that we have here, eliminate them all. We get down to a real austerity budget. And I think the state will eventually tell us, by the way, you owe $52 million and we want our money soon. And we can go out and borrow $52 million. We have a borrowing capability of about $140 million. And if the state ever decides to really address the issue, the way they'll address it is they'll ask for money from us, not vice versa. But they don't want to address the issue either because they will get reelected.
And we have different opinions of that, and it was mentioned before about politics, and that's wrong, because this is a very committed board, and I've seen that through this process. This doesn't have anything to do with politics. We give our teachers really great incentives. We take excellent care of our staff. You started to mention before about retirement, the benefits they have, and
This is the best retirement system anybody could be.
so we really look out for our staff and our students. So, and just, Jack looks at PSERS a little differently than some of the rest of us. I looked at, to give you an example, we were one of 6 school districts that provided all-day kindergarten for many years.
20 years before anybody else.
Before it became the trend. And the new districts that added it received all kinds of funds to support the startup of that program. And we got nothing. We got nothing for having it for 20 years. And I suspect something like that may happen with PSERS in the future. And that's all of our, beliefs based upon conferences we attend, seminars, and so forth. So I think we take really good care of the students and the staff in this district. And I don't think Bill and Dr. Bell would allow us to neglect PSERS. I mean, do you feel that we are being neglectful of PSERS?
When you say administration single-handedly, when John talked about the budget he was going to present, he put column 1, column 2, column 3. Column 1 is a traditional budget that has been presented by administration for many, many years. The board at the end of last year's budget process added that in. So column 1 was tradition. So it's not like it was delivered as promised that column 1 was going to be the traditional budget. So I don't believe we single-handedly took it out.
My opinion, and I respect that two gentlemen greatly, is that issue. I think, from what I've heard you say, and some board members also, is that it is somebody else's problem. And somebody at the state will help us with this at some point in the future when all hope of us ever paying it is dashed. And my opinion is we're always going to pay this, whether we pay 50% of it or 40% of it or 60% of it. This is an obligation that took a long time to get put onto the books of this organization. And it drove us from a positive $60 million equity to a negative $40 million equity. Negative equity. It's like owning your home and you have no equity in your home. That's what it's done. And eventually it will require repayment of that obligation. It's just like a bond, except there's no stated date as to when you have to pay. I've come to the conclusion that anybody involved with the PSERS has a bias toward not addressing it, because it is a significant part of this budget. It's the biggest part of the budget. But if we want to argue over 169,000, I'll go with the 0. It's not a problem.
I hate to say there hasn't been a commitment. If you look at that's exactly what it's called, commitment of fund balance.
$7 million.
Administration and boards have that's how it got to the point it is.
$7 million.
Why we get good interest rates and borrowing, because with your leadership, but we've been supporting putting money into that. I don't know how you can say
Only when there's a surplus. Last year we changed it, so it was not a surplus, it was a definitive expense of the organization to start doing this. Now it's only if. If we don't have a surplus, we won't.
Okay, are we ready to call the question?
Going 0?
I just have one more.
Awesome.
Question.
You're all mentioning being fiscally responsible, but it's, with the matter of PSERS, it's not the people in the room that you're being irresponsible to. It's the kids that are in school right now. When they retire, they're not going to have that money because you didn't bother to pay it now. By saying you don't want to raise taxes because you're being fiscally responsible is not fair, because you're making people not pay something today and our kids have to pay it later. So by not funding the retirement to what it needs to be, and just
10% funding is a good thing. I think it's appalling to me that you would think it's okay to only fund 10% of your bill. So I just.
But just to clarify, we are funding, but we're obligated to pay. So we are funded, like, so.
I understand that you're putting money there.
Right.
But you haven't fully funded your obligation. It's not these people here that are getting affected by that. It's people down the road that the money's not gonna be there for. It's the same thing with Social Security and it's not getting funded
We
correctly.
need to talk to our state legislators about that.
I understand, but at this level, you can do something about it. It's your.
But we are. That's why we have $8 million put aside, that we put money into that fund every year. The pieces.
We are being fiscally responsible by funding this every year. As a matter of fact, the discussion has come up, and myself and Doug Fisher have said this, as I stated, 3 years in a row now. Obligations, but we have arguments amongst this board, discussions, heated discussions, because some of us would like to even put more in this. So we're so much better than the neighboring school districts around here on our financial commitments. Under no circumstances are we acting irresponsible or anything like that. We're acting above and beyond responsibility. You know? I am one of these people that is going to be here. My children are going to be here down the road. You know, we do what is financially responsible here. And sometimes we actually have arguments and disagreements in life, but we do what's financially.
I think for the next 3 years, with a Democratic governor and a Republican legislature, nothing will happen with PESers because they can't come to a framework as to what happens. So I think us relying on them is foolhardy.
All right, so we're gonna move ahead with the draft proposal. Okay, to approve the final adoption of the 2016-17 Delaware Valley School District General Fund budget reflecting the 0% tax increase, reflecting that the 0% tax. I see it now. Remains at a millage rate of 19 mils with a balanced budget revenues and expenditures of $78,139,586. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Jack Fisher. And any additional discussion? All right, yes. Roll call.
Dawn Bouquet?
Yes.
Brian Carson?
No.
Jessica Decker?
Yes.
Jack Fisher?
Yes.
Corey Homer?
Yes.
Pam Lutfi?
Yes.
Jack O'Leary?
Yes.
Chuck Pike?
No.
No.
6 yes, 3 no, motion carries.
So we're gonna move on
We'll
to H. All right, so now I need a motion to approve board policy 825 for administering naloxone. Jessica? Dawn? Okay, Jessica and Dawn. Any discussion? John, anything you want to add to this?
No.
Okay.
Again, I'd just like to thank John for his work on this. I think it's very important to our children.
Any objections? Hearing none, the motion carries. Other business, do I have anything from the board? Do I announce in executive session now? Okay. And anything from the public? We have a meeting on June 9th, 2016, in work session, 6:30 here in the administrative office. June 16th will be our regular public meeting at 6:30, also here in the administrative office.
We're meeting at 6 though. If you can come at 6, that would be great, to see the retiree can have cake for them. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I just want to remind you too, graduation is June 10th at 7 o'clock. Graduation is June 10th at 7 o'clock. We've never had all 9 in my years, so that's my goal. My goal is to have all 9 of us on the podium, all 10 of us on the podium. This is the most expensive graduation for me. You'd be there to provide moral support.
What time would you want to see me?
Brian, do we usually come here at 5:30 or so? Usually come here at 5:30 and then they'll allow you to come in. This is only for like handicap part, but they'll allow you guys to come in here. And then we meet in here in the DL.
At 5:30.
Now it's June 10th.
June tenth, did you say?
Yeah, Friday, June 10th, it's a 7 o'clock event. Be here by 5:30. If you're coming after 6, you'll be out on the free lane for about 45 minutes. You'll never get in time. So that's why we come early. We end up twiddling our thumbs, but it's just to get you in here before that free lane gets really, really bad.
Before I adjourn.
I have a question. Yeah, so where are we at with the budget right now? Is it gonna be posted online tomorrow, or?
It's gonna have to be Monday. I got my staff, so not since I got it.
Oh, yeah. No, I just wanted to
Got
know.
staff
what the
training,
process
so
is.
probably by the end of midday Monday, it'll be posted. It's advertised, legally in a newspaper that says it's on display. And then on June 16th, you would vote on the final.
So Bill, you're gonna make some modification to what we have seen tonight.
I'm adjusting budgetary reserve, state revenues,
Okay.
and delinquent tax.
Okay.
And, I'll make all those changes, and by the end of the day, Monday, it'll be on the website, but it'll be advertised next week, that it's on display at zero tax.
So that'll be we'll meet our 30 days.
And Pam has to sign something tonight that goes to the Department of Education, approves that you put the final budget, or proposed final budget on display.
Our next work session, just have something on paper that shows what those differences are compared to.
I'll give you a one pager with them and brand new with everything changed. Okay?
Jack, are you okay with that motion? Or do you want us to make a motion?
If we want to get 5 votes, I'm not concerned with that.
No, you do have 5 votes.
Yeah, I don't think so.
What does the motion do for, we could over.
We're committing Peaser's money now. Jack, I agree. When you say something, you mean it.
I don't,
So if you,
Jack, I'm gonna be here with you. I'm gonna say the same thing I said in October, that I said in October, and I said October. I wanna know what we're committing. You know, I wanna know the number, like what John Ovalesky said. I wanna know what the number.
So we can do it at the next.
We don't know this October,
Okay.
what about next October?
Jack, the thing is, I actually wanna put as
Okay.
much as possible, as I've stated the last 2 years, I wanna put as much as possible in there. Because what you're saying and what you're telling people, it's the truth. It has been the truth since I first met you. And I don't talk to you on the side. I talk to Bill, I talk to John, I'll call Pam. But I would like to talk to you because your numbers are always good.
That's fine. All right, so, yeah, motion to adjourn.
Motion.